Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexiot's here. It is Friday morning, and on Fridays in the off season for the Raptors, I do Friday Freakout. Whoa! Where I freak out a little bit about something that's going on. I was going to freak out about the fans overreacting to the season ending too early, and all the calls for burning the whole thing down. But I'm going to freak out about the interviews yesterday instead because they were fantastic. We had our end of season interviews, and there were 8 of them yesterday. I'm fully expecting Bobby Webster or Masai Ujiri to have their interview today, and that will fully form the picture of some things from the season. In fact, as Monique put it yesterday in the chat, these are some of the best end of season interviews that we've seen in a long time. And I can't disagree with her. There's a lot in these interviews, and I found out a lot of stuff about our team and what happened this year just from reading between the lines. And I also figured out a whole bunch of stuff about our future. And I'm going to tell you right now, these interviews were really good, and Monique was exactly right. So let me get in the comments and read your comments first. And as we go, we'll talk about the interviews yesterday. We'll talk about some of the end of the year awards. And how they're shaping up right now and the races with that. And then I'm also going to do the ref report for the games tonight so I can tell you about who the refs actually favor for the 2 play-in matchups tonight here in the NBA play-in tournament. So here we go. Strap yourself in for a Friday freak out. Wow! All right, Monique is in first, as it should be. Superfan Monique in the house. Good morning, everyone. I enjoyed every bit of every interview from yesterday. Very telling. Oh my gosh, Monique, so telling. And I have some juicy stuff for you guys to hear today. Ooh, I do. Go Raptors. I must say, I think some of the haters can stick a fork in it and shut up for now. Messiah up next. You know, she is so right with what she's saying to the haters. Just stick a fork in it and shut the fuck up because you guys do not understand what's going on with this team at all. In fact, I'm going to do a review real quick of all 8 interviews yesterday and give you the main points and what I took from them, reading between the lines on each one of them. And of course, we'll start with the big enchilada, the main course, Mr. Nick Nurse, the head coach, the one that has such interesting things going on with him. David's saying you were a fan of Nick's interview. I actually was, David. There were very, very good things said by Nick in this interview, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly why. David saying, I'm just happy the season is over, which is pretty sad. It was exhausting and depressing for the most part. You know, that is not totally inaccurate. That is true. This has been a very long, exhausting, emotionally draining season, and it's been tough. But you know what? There's been bright spots. There's been fun things that happen too. And every season is a journey. You know, there's not always going to be good seasons for the Raptors. You're going to have bad seasons mixed with good seasons. And this year was a bad season. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We could have done better. But, you know, in some ways, think about this, David. We won 7 less games than we did last year. And last year was deemed a success. So the area where how close we were to last year, and if you really think about it, we probably could have gotten 10 more wins in different ways if things had just gone more lucky for us. We could have improved from last year. In fact, this is the thing. The whole problem with the team is the system. It's the system. It got called out yesterday. Oh my gosh. And Fred was the one who called them out. Fred said basically, look, the chaos worked when it worked. The chaos and the freedom of the system. I'm telling you, I've been right all along. Nick Nurse does not call plays. He doesn't do anything with structure. He allows them to do whatever the fuck they want on the court. And it's very like chaotic. And Nick has caused a situation where the guys aren't disciplined, they're not detail oriented, and they're not playing fundamentally well because they're free form jazzing. They're doing improvisation. They're out there like Jimi Hendrix with the guitar on his teeth. You know, that's the problem. And they need structure. They very much need structure. I don't think Nick's a lazy coach. I think he can put structure in, but he's been trying to be laissez-faire and allow the guys to just do what they do for fun. And then boom, they'll blow up. In fact, Scottie said in his interview, he loves that part about Nick. All the players ringing endorsements for Nick Nurse, pretty much except for one. And it was kind of like it was still an endorsement for him, but it wasn't as ringing as the other guys. People saying, I love Nick. I love playing for Nick. Nick is great to play for. We like having Coach Nick. You know, even Fred was straight up asked, do you think Nick Nurse will be back next season? And he said he would be very surprised if he wasn't. So, you know, there's a lot of things that would come from this that are very interesting. Very, very interesting. So Fred's saying that the biggest thing we need to change is our system. He said that our system doesn't work because it has no structure, and that he feels like at end of game situations, they would execute much better if they had detailed plans and a detailed way of doing things. Like if they had very much a very like purposeful purpose in what they're doing in their offense, they'd be much better. Holy shit. My eye test of seeing how they're playing and how they're kind of like being improvisational and just kind of half-assing it as they go was very true. That these guys are not actually doing play calls or play sets. They're just freelancing out there. Well, Nick, you need to fucking earn your coach's money if you're going to continue to be a coach of this team. And I think that the two things that they're going to need to do are two things. They're going to have to go back to more traditional lineup and scrap the Vision 6-9 and go back to center and a point guard and guys in between. And then the other thing is he's going to have to start like making like set plays. And he's going to have to go to bread and butter. And I don't care if they do it over and over again. If it's something that works real well, just go to it over and over again. Because in some ways, the Raptors are way too disorganized, and you have to give them structure, Nick. Now, if you're going to survive this summer and still be our coach at the end of the year, you're going to have to do this. I'm sorry. This may be the coaches meeting with Masai Ujiri saying, Nick, you can't do this freelance crazy shit. Do whatever you guys want on the court anymore. You have to give them structure. You have to tell them what to do. You have to teach them, in this situation, I want you to do this. Because this has been the biggest problem this whole entire year. We have no discipline. We have no fundamentals. We have no attention to detail because we're not playing in a way that matters with detail. That it's really on the player's own personal training and development to get the detail and the fundamentals in their game besides what Nick Nurse is teaching them. And that's what he's saying today. That like Fred wants more structure. Fred wants more structure. He wants plays called. He wants detail. And he wants the team to be on the same page, acting as a unit, knowing exactly what they're going to do. And that we can't just do it by osmosis, as he put it. So very, very illuminating. That whole Fred interview is very, very good. He says everything so well and everything, all the questions. He comes at every single topic from this season and kind of puts things to rest in different ways. And he's such an eloquent speaker. He's a high IQ person, and we are just so lucky to have him on our team. And all the Fred haters, just shut the fuck up. Go watch a half hour of Fred yesterday, and you'll know exactly where he's at and what he's with. In fact, at the end of Fred's interview, he let the cat out of the bag about his relationship with him and Scottie. In fact, he saved the best for last in that part where he's saying, listen, I'm mentoring this young man. I'm teaching him how to play. It's basically what he said. He is doing the Kyle Lowry treatment to him that Kyle Lowry did to Fred. Fred is doing that. He's passing it down to Scott. He really is. He said some really detailed things about what he sees Scottie needs to do. And he talked about how Scottie can make the next leaps. And he also talked about the things that he's teaching him very specifically. And this is the kind of stuff that Kyle was teaching him. So the lineage of passing down the knowledge from Kyle to Fred is happening to Scottie. And that's the thing that all Pensair and all the Fred haters and Scottie lovers are not going to like to hear, because the truth is Fred is mentoring Scottie. And Scottie is all about taking in and soaking in all that stuff. That's not the issue. There's no issue with that. It really is that they were too loose with their system. This is the whole problem with our team, is that we have no structure the whole entire year. And then, of course, I'm talking about Nick Nurse running his starters to the ground and not developing a bench. So you don't have a bench and you don't have any structure. You're just chaos. And chaos does not win NBA games. You got to get your shit reined in and figured out. Now, in some ways, I say just fire Nick anyway and get somebody to come in with structure and let's see how it goes. But in some ways, because of what Nick said in his interview, it's really weird, really, really weird. In some ways, I took Nick Nurse's interview as kind of like, when you're in a relationship with someone and somebody says something like bad and it kind of ruins the relationship a little bit. This is Nick Nurse in Philadelphia. You say so, and then you're like, it's kind of hard for us to mend this relationship because you said something so awful that I can't stand. But now we're trying to fix it and get back together and work back together, because that's what it sounds like. Every single player supports Nick Nurse and loves playing for him. Nick Nurse said that he loves playing in Toronto yesterday. Nick Nurse said that he plans on being the coach for Toronto next year. Nick Nurse said that he and Masai have a perfectly good relationship, that there's no fracture there. That he, what I think happened? all right, this is what happened. I think Clutch put that bullshit out with Doug Smith. I think that they got it out there just to increase his value, doing normal Clutch management bullshit to try and get Nick Nurse a bigger payday by floating that story. And then that story came out, and Nick tried to play coy. He tried to play like, well, maybe I am looking to leave. And he kind of said, well, he said a whole bunch of stupid shit before the Philly game, which opened the door to speculation, to people thinking it's been 10 years. It's been a good 10 years. I'll have to see where I am with the management, saying all that kind of bullshit. It was kind of like, I know he was put up to it by Clutch, but it all backfired and it really looked stupid. And they even asked him straight up yesterday in the interview, do you feel like what you did before the Philly game backfired? He said, no, I don't regret it. But you fucking really do on the down low. We know you do, Nick, because in some ways now you have a whole bunch more hate from the Raptors nation, and it's cloudy about whether you're coming back or not. If that was a negotiation strategy, it was fucked up. And in some ways, I'm still mad at you for that you ruined the end of our season. And that, in some ways, I don't want you to come back. Like, I don't trust you at this point. That's the thing. Even if you're supposed to be coming back to coach our team next year, I don't trust you to like not overplay the starters. I don't trust you to actually like implement systems and have more clearing up of the chaos. I feel like that is what your thing is now. That's just your thing. And that in some ways, it's not good for us to hang on to you. It'll be very telling today what Masai Ujiri says. Whatever he says in relation to Nick Nurse will be very telling. And that's going to be the thing that I'm going to be wanting to hear today is what has Masai got to say about Nick Nurse's job this year and what he thinks is going to happen with him. But yeah, Nick's interesting in his interview. He's kind of a little bit like, yeah, I love Toronto. I love being here. I want to be here. And making it really sound like he wants to stay and that he plans on staying. That he has one more year under his contract and he's supposed to come be our coach again next year. But it's so murky and stupid. And in some ways, you caused all this extra noise that's just dumb. And I hate it, Nick. In some ways, I really don't trust you at this point. I don't trust you because of Clutch and them doing weird shenanigans around like that. And I don't trust you for how you're going to coach our team next year. I have no faith in you coming back with a totally different approach, a whole different system that won't like somehow in some way fall into bad habits like it's been the last couple years. Like that's why you need a new coach, is because in some ways the coach will be the coach that he is. And in some ways, the coach that you are for the Raptors right now does not work. In fact, I can tell you for sure, it is not the players. The players are not fighting. They love each other. Everything's fine with the players. It's not management and coach. It's not management and the players. It's not player to player. It's not players and the coach. The problem is just basically the coach. The coach has no order to his team. And that is why we had our season that we had this year. That these guys weren't directed at the end of games on how to win the game. These guys were not told how to do it. It was all very much left open to them to do it on their own and figure it out for themselves. And that's why it looks so ugly. That's why it looks so bad. That's exactly why this whole season was a fucking nightmare, is because of Nick and his complacency in not doing his job fully. It's like, sure, you can do the previews, you can come up with general schemes on defense and do a really good job, but you're not concentrating on the offensive end and really trying, instead of saying, yeah, in general, yeah, if you can get Scottie down low for low post stuff and you can do this, you can do that. Fuck that. Get some really definitive plays, practice them throughout the season, and look more like a team like Boston that looks well oiled and working with the parts all working together and knowing what each other have to do. In fact, that was another thing that came up yesterday a lot in the interviews, role definition. That's another problem with our team. That the ambiguousness of our roster, the ambiguousness of 6'9" vision, the ambiguousness of our bench and what the fuck they're supposed to be doing has been a big problem with our team also. So it's really, we need to get more organized. We need to get more like cutthroat with like deciding how we're doing things. I had a brilliant, bright idea yesterday. And it's amazing, honestly. It makes so much fucking sense, and it may solve all of our problems. And if you Raptors people are listening to me from MLSE, if you are just vicariously, if you have one little mole person that watches me and reports back, I want you to tell Nick Nurse this. Next year, Fred VanVleet off the bench. I know a lot of Penserites and a lot of people that hate Fred will be like, why the fuck did he just say that? That doesn't make any sense. You know why? I'm going to tell you exactly why. Listen, what worked when Fred was on the bench? The bench mob. He was the leader of the bench mob. In some ways, we need a bench mob leader. Well, why not get the fucking original bench mob leader, Fred VanVleet? Because we know he can do this. Now, listen to me here. If there's a friendly rivalry or just a cool relationship with Scottie and Fred, what we can do is this, Nick. You make two units. You got your starters and you got your bench. But instead of putting all of the quality players, the top players on the starting lineup, you mix it up. You actually literally mix it up before the game. And these guys will know that their unit is which unit. Because remember what Fred and CJ talked about in an interview a couple weeks ago. The competition between the bench mob with the starters and Kyle and DeMar was a really big thing that drove the competition and the level of play on the Raptors through the roof. Now, this was all under Dwayne Casey. This was not under Nick Nurse, but he was there. He saw it, so he should understand how it works. Now, you don't have to put anybody else on the bench. Put Gary with Fred, sure. But listen, this is what I'm saying. You have a top 5 of starters, and Scottie will be the point guard, and he will start the game with Siakam, OG, and Poeltl, and maybe Precious. And then you have that lineup, and then Fred will be the leader of the backup lineup. And in some ways, he's always been the underdog and the guy on the chip on his shoulder. And it's not that Fred will play any less. It's not that Fred won't end the games. In fact, we will meld it to a way where you will have Fred on the court, even though he's a bench player. He could win 6th man of the year. And this is the thing. He will organize that team and be that backup point guard that we need, that will get them to be competitive, because he did it before. And he's only a better player at this point. So Fred wouldn't lose any minutes. He wouldn't lose any prestige. He probably could keep the same stats. It's just that he would be off the bench. And what would happen is when Scottie fucks up, at some point, he comes out and Fred's bench unit comes in. So Scottie would get time to do things in the first quarter. But if things were too bad with that, you had the backup plan of bringing in the bench unit with Fred. You put Fred out there with Boucher and Trent, and I don't know, Joe Weezy, Jeff Doughton Jr., I don't know. You put him out there with a unit like that, he will make that unit strong and tough. And that's the thing. You could even bring old bench mob guys from the starting lineup back into the bench mob lineup like Poeltl and Siakam, and it would work. That is the smartest idea in some ways, because you get what you used to have from the guy who originally ran it. The bench mob captain was Fred VanVleet. Now, he can be still the captain of the whole entire team as the captain off the bench. I want him to still be that figurehead leader, because one of the things that Fred said yesterday was so telling to me was he learned, this is the biggest thing Fred learned from this season, was that he needs to be himself. In fact, I think this is what happened. When we drafted Scottie, he realized Scottie was like one of those premium blue chip top draft pick kind of guys, that he has a level of talent that is Giannis like. So Fred, I think just because he's a nice guy and just the way he is, and he wanted to make Scottie comfortable, he was very nice to him and very kind of people pleasing with him in a way where like he was more likely to be like bending over backwards and just be not cause any trouble with him. Well, I think what Fred learned this season is he needs to be a hard ass and a jerk. That's what I read from this. Like Fred needs to be himself is basically what he said. I've learned this season that I need to be myself. And for me, I take this as this. Fred needs to be confident in who he is and what he believes and be outspoken on the team. If he doesn't like how something's going on the team, he needs to be that leader and get in people's faces. He needs to be that guy that holds people accountable. And in some ways, I think behind the scenes, Fred's been giving people free passes just to keep harmony on the team. Well, I think this season, Freddie has realized that Scottie needs the discipline and he needs the leader that will tell him what he needs to do. And I don't think I think that everybody's got it wrong. I think Scottie eats it up and he wants that. It's not that he doesn't want to be told what to do. I think we've been wrong with that speculation. I think that it's very healthy and that they have good communication with each other. And Scottie is learning from Freddie. So basically, Freddie needs to be a hard ass and be like who he's supposed to be as the leader of this team and not be like pussyfooting around. He needs to be just exactly who he is and tell the guys what he thinks on the team. And then he can be the real leader like Kyle is. And I'm here for it. Listen, some people may get mad because they may see Fred more aggressive and a little bit more outspoken as the leader of the team on the team next year. But this is what Scottie needs as a young player. He needs this direction. He needs the stern leadership of a Fred VanVleet that's not worried about people pleasing for him. This is exactly one of the things that people have misread about Fred and Scottie is that Fred has not been trying to tell Scottie what to do, but maybe he needs to more. Some of the stuff Fred talked about, what he's teaching Scottie is so good. Like there was a section where Fred said, Scottie's a kind of player that can see 5 plays ahead, and he needs to get more in tune with this. He knows the different things about what Scottie needs to do to get to the next level. And in fact, Fred is the kind of person that can help mentor and build him to get to the next level. And Scottie wants that. In fact, his interview was so interesting. He's very low energy. He seemed really kind of down, but he was talking about the offseason. He was talking about his conditioning. He's saying that he has to go even heavier this year. So I'm not going to see him on Twitch. I'm pretty sure he's not going to waste any more time on video games this summer. He's going to be in the gym. And Fred said he needs to be a gym rat. Well, what did Scottie say in his interview? I'm going to be in the gym way more this summer, and I'm going to be getting more and more conditioning because I know that I need good conditioning to play the high level of defense that I want to play in this league. So Scottie has goals to get better as a player, and he's smart. He can understand that Fred knows stuff, and he can teach him things about how to be a better point guard in the league, how to read the floor better, how to be ahead of the play, and how to get things better in all kinds of ways. Scottie's going to see a jump. More that Fred can be himself and teach him, and Scottie absorbs it, the more Scottie works this summer hard, because he really does want to be one of the top players in this league. And this is the only way you can do it, Scott, is listening to your coach and the other players, the older players, and working that your ass off in the offseason. I loved hearing what Scottie said, even if he said it very like quietly and kind of like with no energy. He said he wants to work harder this summer and that he's motivated for that. That is the best thing we could have heard from young Scott Wayne Barnes, that he's motivated to get better this summer and that he's all about more conditioning. Conditioning. That was the big word with Scottie yesterday. And Freddie echoed it in his interview. He said he needs to be a gym rat. He needs to be a gym rat this summer and just be in that gym all summer long. And then he can take a leap. So a lot was illuminated about the relationship between Scottie and Freddie. He is very much mentoring him, just like he's mentored Malachi. And Scottie is listening. It's not that these guys don't like each other. There's all the evidence in the world that they actually really love playing with each other and that they're very happy teammates together. So that was really good, putting a lot to rest and giving me a window to seeing exactly kind of what their relationship is at, where the dynamic is right now. There is not any problems with our players. It's just that in losing, there's confusion. In losing, there's the proclivity to want to point fingers. And that's kind of how things get torn apart. But all the players were saying the relationships between all the players are pretty good in general. That's what Scottie said. My relationship with all the people on this team are pretty good. And there's no problems really with the players, with each other. So it's really weird. I think the connectivity and the selfishness and all that kind of stuff is because of the open-ended policy of Nick Nurse and his coaching. That a lot of our problems respond because he's just not organized now. He just hasn't given them roles, and he just doesn't have them doing defined things. So it's crazy. I feel like Nick was walking back his press conference from Philadelphia yesterday. It's very much like, okay, yeah, I said this stuff, but I do want to be here. I love Toronto. I want to be here. I've been here for 10 years. We've been building this culture here, and it matters to me. It matters to me. And me and Masai, we see eye to eye because we both want to win so desperately. You know, he said that he's had good relationship with Masai all season long, that they've been in communication and they've been mostly really fine things. Of course, they're going back and forth and talking about how can we win better, Nick? How can we do better? Oh, Masai, I could try this. That's the thing. Now, one of the things they're going to do that Nick said is they're going to analyze everything from the season. They're going to evaluate all the players. They're going to evaluate the moves. They're going to evaluate the coaching. And that's the thing. That's going to be the area that's going to be weird. Masai and Bobby may go look at the coaching job that Nick did and said, yeah, you're fired because you did fuck us up and we did lose games because of your coaching. That's what I think they may find, but I don't know. Maybe they'll give him a pass and say they still believe in him, but he has to make drastic changes. And those changes are like he seriously has to throw everything out from last year. Throw everything the fuck out and start over this summer. You got to build a whole new system and a whole new idea stuffs. If you take my idea to put Fred as the bench mob captain, the captain of the whole team, coming off the bench, and let him do that, you may find very good success. Because think about this. If you have that good starting lineup out there with Scottie running things, and listen, he has a safety net. It's Fred. Fred comes in. And I'm not saying that Fred doesn't play with some of the starting players ever. You really mix them and meld them in. But for the most part, if you need to make a wholesale change like you used to with the bench mob, you have Fred come in with the bench mob kind of guys. He's already an outstanding backcourt with Gary Trent Jr. if Gary is staying. And that's what I'm saying. It just makes, it was a light bulb that popped in my head last night. And I was like, this makes so much fucking sense. We have bench problems. Put the bench mob captain off the bench. I know that Fred, this is the thing that's going to drive Pensair people crazy. What if Fred says, yes, I will come off the bench because it's the best for my team, and I will do these things and make these sacrifices to make our team even better? Because I really do feel like this is what could really fix everything. It really could. It'll fix our bench problems. It'll fix our issues with more role definition. It will give more ideas. Freddie said yesterday he loves running with another point guard. All that time with Kyle was fun, and he has no problem playing next to Scottie at Sim playing a point guard also. So all the questions were answered, and they were more clear from things that were said yesterday. Fantastic interviews. Now, like I said, listen, Nick earned points back with me yesterday. So in some ways, I'm willing to give him a chance, but I really do want him to scrap everything he did last season, get the fuck out of here, and start over. You got to start over this summer with your assistants and build a new, more traditional offensive system that really has Jakob in mind and more of traditional 1 and 5 kind of roles happening on the court. And then you need to really kind of think about the evaluations of all your bench players from this year, Joe Weezy all the way on up to Gary Trent Jr. and Chris Boucher. And you got to really analyze what their roles should be. And just like Chris got a role, and he knows what he's doing out there. In fact, he talked about it a lot yesterday in his interview, having a role on this team. You got to give them all roles and make them understand the habitat that they inhabit for our team and their roles and what they should be doing out there. So those are two goals I want to give Nick Nurse or the next coach, the Toronto Raptors, for next season. You need to get a more traditional offense. You can do positionless looks at times, and that's fine. And you can still do that. But I want a more traditional basic offense that has a lot to do with what Poeltl does for us and people like Fred. That we need a point guard center kind of offense that's kind of like set more a normal half court offense with pick and rolls and all kinds of stuff. You have Poeltl, go ahead and abuse that. Use the hell out of a Poeltl and what his skills can do for our offense. And then, like I said, you got to define those roles. Gary did really good surfing around on the starting lineup to the bench to whatever with his role and trying to still be who he's supposed to be on our team with, streak shooter success as far as like missing some games, but some games being absolutely crazy. Precious in some ways, he's such a great talent and athlete. He can play anything, and he's kind of survived this no role kind of thing because he's so good all around. In some ways, we want to make him more defined in having his roles. If it's going to be a defensive rebounder and just a rebounder and then kind of an aggressive attacker on offense with some threes, so be it. Just make it very clear to the guys what their role is and what they can expect. And then they will be able to thrive even more. And those deeper bench guys, you just got to give them specialist roles. Joe Weezy, it's obvious what his specialist role is. But you need to go through and each guy, like Jeff Doughton Jr., whoever else, you got to tell them this is your specialist role. And this is what I really want you to focus on. Just like I told Chris Boucher to focus on these specific things. These are your specific things that you need to focus on. These are the ways we can fix this team without making huge changes to it. It's just that Nick's got to show that he can be absolutely turn on a dime, change his whole entire philosophy, change his whole entire system, and change everything that he's been fucking doing to be more organized. Now, if he's just an unorganized coach, he likes to fly by his seat, and he's just making it up as he goes, then he needs to go because we need more organization. We need more order, and that is the biggest problem with this team. The chaos does not work. Fred said the chaos works when it works, but it doesn't work more often than not. And that's the thing about chaos. You can't control it. You cannot control chaos and loose balls and where they're going to bounce and different things like that. And that's why playing chaos ball is not a sound strategy because you can't control chaos ball. And that's just how it is. That's just the truth of it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. Monique's saying, how many of you like the part where he put clutch in their place? I did so much to take away from the interviews. I don't really think he put clutch in his place. He's kind of did this. They asked him, do you regret it? And he said, no, I don't regret it. I'm like, that's kind of bullshit. In some ways you maybe should have went ahead and said something about what happened. And in some ways it would have made me feel more ingratiated with you hanging around if you felt like that was a bad move. But in some ways, that's another reason why I don't trust him. We could be in a very important part of the season, and he may say something fucking stupid that makes a whole dumpster fire for us out of the blue. He's never done this kind of stuff. I mean, he has and he hasn't. There's been little bits of press conference stuff where he causes controversy, like by throwing Chris Boucher under the bus or something like that. But for the most part, it's never been something like this. And it really is clutch bullshit. So he didn't really go after clutch, like you're saying, Monique. And he kind of just said, oh, I don't take anything back. And that kind of pisses me off. But he did say everything else right yesterday. He did say everything else right. And I do believe him that he in some ways is committed to wanting to stay here in Toronto, that he isn't totally out the door. In fact, he said he doesn't know where this report came from. I hate this shit. You know where it came from, Nick. It came from Rich Paul. You know that report was planted by your own management crew. And they put it out there, and Doug Smith was the vessel. In fact, it's funny. Doug's there, and Nick said, you put it out, didn't you, Nick? He said it straight to Doug Smith. He said, you put that shit out, basically, to Doug Smith. And I thought he was backing up Doug because we were all slamming Doug for being an idiot. Because, once again, it's weird. These interviews yesterday, they make all these bullshit rumors unproved. They get disproved. Like the thing about what Nick said about wanting to be in Houston or being on his way out, that he said that it was not true, that he plans on being the Raptors coach and that he doesn't even know where this garbage came from, that he wants to leave the Raptors. He doesn't believe that rumor. It's just another one of these rumors, just like the OG rumor. And in fact, OG doubled down on that yesterday, saying, I love Toronto. I want to have an extension and stay in Toronto. OG said it yesterday, Jake Fisher, and then Bob McCowan. OG said that yesterday. So a lot of these rumors and things about people not being happy or wanting to be on the team or not getting along, all disproven, all very much false news, fake news, because we heard it from the players' mouths. We heard it from the coach's mouth yesterday. And there's all kinds of interesting stuff in each interview. Each interview had very interesting things in it. Like I said, Nick Nurse talking about his coaching situation, OG talking about his season and talking about defensive player of the year and him liking on the team. He likes being a Raptor. He likes being in Toronto. And, he's talking about where he can get better. And then Fred's interview was amazing. He covered so much stuff in the half hour that he did. And he said everything right. This dude's a company man. And you know what he said? The thing that matters to him most this summer is his family. And this is what I'm going to tell y'all right now. He's thinking about his decision as it pertains to his family. Well, he's got very young children, and Toronto is home. Toronto's always been home. So anybody who's thinking that a guy like Fred is dumb enough to want to unpack his family and send them somewhere else and go start a whole new life in another place in a weird way like that, I don't think he's going to want to do that. He's more likely to want to stay here and not go through the headache of all that and what it could cause. His children probably have friends here. They have teachers. His wife probably has very much everything set up for them very well here. It's been 7 years that he's been here. So in some ways, we got to realize this. These long-standing people that have been here forever, like Siakam also saying the same kind of stuff, Toronto is home. And listen, he even alluded, like I said, all season, that he may not even opt out. And not only that, Gary alluded to that yesterday, y'all. This is the crazy thing. You guys think that Gary and Fred are going to be free agents this summer or want to get an extension, but these guys may just take the money that's on the books and go forward. They kind of signaled that. When you have a mid-season, a disappointing season, a season where these guys didn't shine, especially Gary on the last game, and Fred kind of really didn't have a really good year this year. In some ways, that's not the time to test the market by opting out on your contract to go and try and get more money. Is go ahead and take the money that you got right now and keep going, especially if you like the situation you're in and you want that, you don't want to stir the pot and maybe cause something where all of a sudden you're off the team that you actually wanted to be on. That's what I'm saying. Some of this is very interesting. Everybody thinks, oh, because they have the ability to opt out and try and get more money this year, doesn't mean they're going to. Seriously, they may be very much like very happy where they are. Gary said this over and over again. He loves Toronto. He named his favorite Thai food restaurant and talked about that he wants to be here. You could tell he wants to be here, but he did play the business side. He said, I'm gonna have to get with my people. We're gonna have to analyze things. We're gonna have to look at how it is, and we'll go from there. But I do love Toronto, and I would like to talk to management about staying here, is basically what Gary said. So, and then Poeltl, the other one we got, he said he loved Toronto. He wants to be here, and that has been a very positive experience since he's came back. He said it was frustrating. He figured that they would win more, and he doesn't like the way they went out. In fact, he was very angry about how they lost the game to Chicago, and he was not cool with it at all. You could tell Poeltl was like, he's the kind of guy that'll have standards. In fact, he talked about the culture of Popovich in San Antonio and how much value that adds to that franchise. And, you could tell like there's things that Poeltl knows about San Antonio that we could really try and do better here in Toronto. And that may be something you need to do, Nick. Maybe you need to go get with Poeltl and really pick his brain about Popovich in some ways, so you can establish more order and define things about the team. That if there's one thing Popovich has been very good at for his whole decades of coaching that team, is role definition and having systems and getting guys growing and developing, coming up all the time with the vets still, and balancing all that. This is stuff you could really work on in your coaching resume, Nick, as far as like how to balance development with winning, and then also giving role definition to young players that are coming in and giving them chances. So there's some keys, there's some linkages and things that you guys need to explore more. We have very intelligent players in Fred and Jakob. These guys are brilliant, smart people, and they're also very smart on the basketball court. They need to be used as leaders, and they need to be heard by the rest of the team. That these guys in particular, Fred and Jakob, are natural leaders, and they're very, very smart, and they could help make our team more smart overall. In fact, they care about detail. They care about the little things. They care about the fundamentals. They care about the things that our team as a whole needs to care about more for next season to make a leap in being more successful. That it is the little things we're not doing right. We are all crazy with talent and athleticism and getting up and down the court and energy and all this stuff, but we're not paying attention to the details. We're not paying attention to the little things. And Fred is crying out for it, Nick. No more of this bullshit and Morpheus blob of you guys just do whatever the fuck you want out there. Y'all need to have direction. You have to have purpose, and you have to know the fuck what you guys are doing to execute it. That is what I heard yesterday, as far as from Fred VanVleet's mouth. And I'm telling you, that interview with Fred is gold all around. Everyone who questions Fred and his intentions and what he's all about as a person, you watch that interview and you will learn even more about exactly how smart, how intelligent, and how he is a dedicated Raptor, and he loves playing for our team. As he said, he owes everything in his NBA life to our team, and he doesn't take that lightly. This man is a very loyal person, and it's too bad that our fan nation can't be more loyal to him. But you know what? He's so smart, he turned it all off. He hasn't heard any of y'all. He probably doesn't even know who Pantsera is. He doesn't exist in his world. He said it this way. He's like, how the fuck is somebody online going to bully me? I have millions of dollars. You go, Fred. Perfect exit interview yesterday. Said all the right things, and it was awesome. And I can't get mad at Nick. Nick said a lot of the right things on his way back to try and be okay with us. So I'm going to give him a chance. I mean, I'm saying fire him, and I think that still is the right decision. But if he's going to be able to stick around and make changes and come through with this, he could do it. He's that kind of guy, but he has a lot of work to do this summer. And he's going to have to get it very much organized. I think that's the word we need to talk about, organization. And that's the word he needs to get more organized. That's right. Jimmy's here. Good to see Jimmy Pope. I honestly don't even feel that stressed about this season. People are overreacting, in my opinion. We were never going to win the championship. The season could have easily gone a different way. We had a mix of success and failure. Everybody who thinks that this season was just a failure is not right. There's so many different things that went really wrong for us, and we stayed together and we made it through. There's different ways of measuring success in the NBA. And some people, they only measure it by that Larry O'Brien. And those are the people that should not be listened to, or about whether the team's getting better or not, because they're all or nothing people. And they really don't have a realistic view about the NBA and franchises and how they go up and down in the water. And at some point you get to a high point and maybe you get the championship, but you're going to have a little bit of going up and down, just like with the waves, like a buoy in the water. It's going to go boo, 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 boo. There's a little bit of that from year to year. And this is not a normal, this is not an abnormal like difference from last year. This is -7 wins from last year. And that's not a huge amount of wins. If you look at 48 wins last year and 41 this year, in a lot of ways, the seasons were kind of similar. They were. It's just the wins were less this year. So let's keep going. David's saying winning a chip and being able to walk and chew gum are two different things. Never thought we would look as hopeless as we did. That's the thing that bugs me. And this is why people on Twitter, I think it's Grange, is saying that we need to cut the tie with the championship and start our new era now. And see, he's pushing to get rid of Nick too. There's a lot of people pushing for that right now. And like I said, I'm not totally against that. I really want to see what Messiah analyzes everything and what he decides. He could be getting rid of Nick, but in some ways, I don't know if we should, because in some ways he is that kind of guy that can figure this out. It's like if he's in that plane hitting the ground, he might be able to pull that up and like get back and be okay. And I'm okay with this. I could figure out a way to be okay with Nick being our coach next year still, if it's going to be that way. And in fact, whatever decision Masai makes, I will back it up and I'll reinforce it with my propaganda on this channel. I will not be going against or being upset against what Masai decides. I'm always going to back up what Masai decides, because it's dysfunctional as a fan to go against Masai. As long as Masai is in charge, I will back it up company line, and I will put it out there as much as I can, the defense and the stances to prop up whatever they decide. And if they decide to keep Nick around, then I will go in that direction very heavy, and I will be protecting him against people who are like me in the recent weeks coming after him. So that, just so y'all know, it will really be Masai that decides it, and then I will come in and do whatever I say. Like whatever I say for the summer, we'll go from that. And because that's the only way we can do it, is realistically, Masai's going to decide what happens with our coach. And unless Nick decides to resign and just leaves all of a sudden, well then fuck him. All right, let's see. Monique saying Fred's interview was spot on, hands down. Yeah, Fred is just so good. It's polished, it's articulate, it's intelligent. He hits all the major important issues that are going on right now. He touches on everything: social media, betting. He touches on him and Scottie's relationship. He talks about his relationship with Nick. He talks about why he thinks this year didn't go well. It's so illuminating. And Fred really does teach us so much about the season. In some ways, you can kind of tell, okay, this is why it was kind of weird like this. It's because they weren't organized. And it looked like that to me, just from the basketball standpoint. They're not running plays. He's just telling them, go win it, guys. Go win it, guys. And he's like not telling them what to do, like do a backdoor cut and get over here and you'll have this open layup right here. That's what I'm saying. He's been coaching them lazy to a degree, and he's got to do a better job. Let's see. David saying Fred's getting fired. That's so off. David, just because you're one of my favorites and you're one of the real ones here, I'm not going to give you a strike for that, but I'd give a strike to anybody else for that. Because seriously, you just heard what I said about Fred. Go watch the Fred interview and you'll realize this dude is a company man, and we need this guy on our team no matter what. Like I said, think about it. If Fred will do what I asked just now, like if he will fucking come off the bench and lead our bench mob once again to glory, because in some ways they talked about the competitiveness between the starters and the bench and how much fun that is. You don't understand how much that could generate good things on our team and more wins. Like with the starters can't get lazy because they feel the bench will come and steal their minutes for the game at any time. And that could be part of the friendly competition between the bench and the starters. As far as Fred could be like getting his guys organized off the bench, and he'll be like, we need to take more of the minutes tonight, and we're going to play so well that we can. In some ways, that's the way you want to drive up competition on your team. That Casey was so smart that he had that little cohort of Poeltl, Siakam, and Van Vliet together in the G League, and they were competing so hard against the starters that drove the Raptors' abilities way up high to a high level because the bench pushed the starters and the starters pushed the bench. It worked real well together. One hand washes the other. And that's what I want to see. If they do this, and I'll be like, you remember the Raptors Freak said that 2 days after our season ended. That I said, put Fred on the bench and let him run the bench unit, but he still gets all the minutes. He can do just like how Gary did it this season. He'll get all the minutes and he will close the game still. He won't start. And in some ways, we minimize some of the disadvantages we have from Fred being in the starting lineup by doing this, because we can start a big lineup. And once again, if Scottie is not playing well, if he's having one of these kind of young player moments where he's just not running things right, like he did at times at the beginning of the season, you've got your safety. You've got your guy to come in and take over things. And you don't even necessarily take Scott out to make him feel bad and hurt his confidence. Maybe you leave him in. It's just he switches from the one to a different position when Fred comes in. There's a lot of ways he could do this. Just get more organized, Nick. That's what we're saying. That's what Fred's saying. And that's what I'm saying. Get more organized this season if you're still going to be our coach. Let's see. David's saying, I missed it the other day. Left before Lex got to it. Can a team actually package a coach and a player? Like, can you trade your coach? Yes. People have traded their coaches in the past. Jason Kidd was once traded as a coach from Milwaukee, I believe, to Dallas. He was actually traded that way. We're not going to trade Nick. I mean, we could technically, and maybe Masai will look into that, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Either he's going to resign or we'll fire him, or he's going to be our coach. And I can tell you right now, I don't know which one it'll be. It's really 33% on each one of them. It's a third each, the percentage chance of him staying, him walking, or him getting fired. I think so. I'm saying 66% chance he's probably leaving, but there still is a 33% chance he will stay. So, David, let's hold our tongue and let's wait. And I know you really want to trade Nick and Fred out of here, but I definitely do not want to trade Fred. Fred is our dude. Nameless is saying, I realize I've been entirely too harsh on DR DeRozan. This is clearly a child suffering from obvious mental health issues. We should all be more tolerant. I don't know if you're joking or you're serious. In some ways, I could tell maybe that is part of it. I don't know. Let's not assess her mental health. She's just a kid. She literally asked DeMar, can I come to the game in Toronto, Daddy? And apparently it was because she used to come to the games when she was little here in Toronto. So she has memories of Daddy playing for the Raptors and cheering for him. Well, listen, what do little girls understand about boys and girls and relationships and breaking up and, being jilted? There's some of that with DeMar and the Raptors. And that is part of the reason why she came the way she came to the game. So crazy. So crazy. David's saying, I didn't realize that. However, either way, it's fucking annoying. Wait, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. You got to put the proper thing in. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. Nameless is saying, yeah, of course it is, David. Have you ever in your life seen a 10-year-old child behave that way in public who was not suffering from mental health issues? I have not. Mental health is invisible. Listen, are you going to say I have mental health issues? Because I do what she does at the games all the time. Maybe I do have mental health issues. I don't like putting that kind of shit on people. Listen, stigmatizing somebody with having mental health issues is not usually you that puts that label on other people. In fact, I want you guys to stop doing this kind of shit. You don't do it. The person inside maybe feels like they have issues and they go get help. But everybody has their own behaviors and quirks, and they are not going to be all the same. And whatever people decide whether things are abnormal or normal in society, fuck you for that. People are just different. People are doing their thing. Maybe they have joy in something that's very eccentric and you don't understand it. And it has nothing to do with mental health issues. Mental health issues are a big problem with the pandemic, and everybody has them. Trust me, we all have them to a degree at this point. There's been trauma collectively around the globe because of COVID and because of all kinds of different crazy shit. Now, different people have different levels of mental health issues because of the pandemic. But once again, it's not for us to paint people with mental health issues. Sure, you see a crazy homeless person talking to themselves, punching a garbage can. Sure, they probably have mental health issues. But in some ways, it's not right to put that label on a 10-year-old girl just because she screeched at a basketball game. In a way, you saying that makes me think, oh, crap, now I have mental health issues because I do the same damn thing she does at games all the time. Seriously, I've always screeched at free throws against the opposing team. I've done this myself. So it's like you're making me worry about myself. Actually, I know I have mental health issues. And I'll stand strong in them and be proud to say, look, there's no stigma on this. We all have problems with our mental health from time to time. And there's no reason why we should make it seem like it's a bad thing. It's something where we need help and we need people to like look out for us and not and be more caring instead of kind of judgmental is what I'll say on this. Yeah. Isaac saying like and subscribe. Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate that. The benevolent Isaac Campbell. Jimmy saying, but hey, she's a little girl fighting for her dad, so I got to give her a pass. Left my ass off. Still salty. Yeah, I'm salty at her too. I'm not gonna say I like her, but I have to respect what she did, and I'm not gonna say that I hate her either. It's just that I'm not. She's not my favorite person. She's not my favorite person, but it's very interesting and comical. And once again, we need to see the comedy and the humor in how our season ended, and not be so bitter and be upset. What's the point? In some ways, this whole season's been a joke, so let's laugh at it instead of taking it so seriously. How about that? Nako saying most important thing we got to do is keep OG, Precious, Scottie, and Coloco and Yak, and make sure that we are thinking about trading is a good trade. I think we'll also get a good player in the draft. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's not a bad list of guys to keep for sure. I'm pretty sure I would put Fred on that list also, as far as things for me. Everybody else, I mean, Pascal, I'd like to keep too. Like Pascal's interview was interesting. Once again, he's a very I don't know kind of guy. That's not my job description. That's above my pay grade. I don't answer that. He's very like he won't answer questions about Nick the same way the other guys would. He didn't talk about him like he said, yeah, I've always had Nick as my coach and stuff like that. But he didn't really totally ringing endorsement Nick like Fred and Scottie did. And that was interesting to me. Not that I'm trying to pick it apart and say, oh, Pascal has a problem with Nick Nurse, but he didn't enthusiastically stand up for him like the other guys did. In fact, his stance was, it's not my job to decide who the coach should be for the team. That is for Masai in the front office. And, there's a lot of that with Siakam. He doesn't like answering questions directly. He'll often do like politician kind of stuff and say, oh, that's not for me to answer because that's not my job description. Or he very often will say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just how it is. Now, he did say a lot of really good stuff, like as far as like talking about his offseason plans and what he's going to work on this summer and stuff. I have a feeling that Siakam, in some ways, really is going to try and get into like a Mamba mentality or a Jordan kind of killer mode. That he may realize at this point that is the next step to elevating his game to the next level, is to really try and cultivate this killer instinct and this idea of like that. In some ways, Nick's failed him. Because in some ways, Nick could actually build Siakam into more of a clutch player if he'd put him in better plays that set him up to win games. That's what I'm saying. Siakam's had one really big game winner. It was against Phoenix a few years ago. And he took somebody off the dribble to the basket and laid it in at the last second. And we won the game on that last second basket. That's the only game I can remember that Siakam specifically had a game winner that absolutely won us a game. And he was the guy. Now, I want to see Nick next season utilize the supreme talent of Siakam in a way so that he can be no failure. That he gives him such a good play, like somehow gets him free, that he just gets such a good shot that he's going to make it no matter what. Maybe just like that dunk that he made near the end of the game against Chicago on Wednesday night. There's got to be some sort of way to free Siakam up so that you can fucking get him to have the best clutch things happen. That's what I think is happening here. That Nick's not setting up Siakam to succeed in the clutch moments by drawing up plays that are foolproof, that Siakam will score for sure. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to see him trying to do it all on his own, isolating, just making it up as he goes. Coach, you need to coach the team. You need to tell them what to do and get them organized and get them to the spots where they will succeed. That is part of your job. Just like the coach has that job, the point guard has the same job on the court to make sure that his teammates succeed, set them up to succeed. The point guard does that. Then coach needs to set them up to succeed also by giving them the tools, the knowledge, the repertoire, and the information about what they should do out there on the court to be successful. And that's what I'm saying. These are really easy, quick fixes. I mean, they're not quick fixes. They're not easy, I guess. But these are the fixes. These are the things we need to do to fix this team so that it can be better. And if they do these things, we're gonna see dramatic results. We're gonna see dramatically different team next year that will do way, way better if they just fucking stop half-assing the coaching. They got to stop half-assing the coaching. That's the biggest part of it right there. Monique saying it's more official now and out there. DR is not in Miami. It's funny. United Airlines, who's one of the biggest sponsors of the Chicago Bulls. They have the United Center where they play. They have given a free ticket to DeMar DeRozan to Miami for today because they want her to go to the game. They're saying, forget about it, DeMar, send her down there. We have a ticket for her. We want to send her down here. It's like the Bulls fans are all about it. There's a petition going around from Miami fans to ban her from their building before the game even starts. What a force a 10-year-old little girl is in the NBA today. Oh my gosh. The fans are putting up petitions against her and the airlines are giving her tickets. It's crazy. Nako's saying, let's go 2023 NBA champion Miami Heat. Here's hoping. That's crazy talk, Nako. In some ways, I cannot see that happening. I mean, I'm not against that, although I am, because I kind of don't like Miami's fan base. And they've got enough championships already. And I don't care if Kyle gets another championship. You know, in some ways, they kind of directed the Miami Heat away from the Boston Celtics. And tonight, all right, I'll do the ref report right now since we're talking about this game. The referees for the game tonight in Miami are as follows: Tony Brothers, Josh Tiven, Carl Lane, and the alternate is Brian Forte. Now, I'm not going to do the ref report like I normally do. I'm just going to tell you which referees favor which teams. All three of the referees that are refereeing in the Miami game with Chicago Bulls favor the Miami Heat. Every single one of them, Tony Brothers, Josh Tiven, and Carl Lane. The alternate does favor the Bulls, but he's the alternate. He will not be refereeing. So it is very much like they're setting up Miami to play Milwaukee in the first round. Now, in some ways, I put 2 and 2 together on this and said, well, Atlanta beats Miami and they get the Celtics, which is much better for the Celtics than the Heat against the Celtics. And now the Milwaukee Bucks may have to deal with the Heat instead. And that's a much more difficult first round. In some ways, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are rooting for the Bulls tonight, that they would love to see the Bulls beat the Miami Heat tonight and not have to face the Miami Heat, who are much more experienced and dangerous in the playoffs. But the referees are signaling that the NBA wants the Heat to win the game at home and be in that first round against them. In some ways, they have star power on their team, and that is what they want. The other game, I will tell you the referees are Scott Foster, Courtney Kirkland, Giamidis Petraeus, and the alternate is Brent Barnecki. Now, in that game, Scott Foster favors the home team Minnesota Timberwolves, and the other refs, all three of them, the two other refs and the alternate favor the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there you go. Scott Foster is on the Timberwolves side statistically. Meanwhile, the other refs are for the Thunder. And then all the refs in the game for the Miami Heat game in the Chicago Bulls are favoring the Heat. Just so you know, there's your ref report for today. Just a little side ref report just for the games for tonight, just for fun. Let me see. What else did I want to talk about? Let me go back to the comments. Let's see. G saying playing free ball is good for vets and high IQ players whom already have their fundamentals and set plays practice in their past. Yes. I think that he's done this all along, like in some ways. Like this is the way he coached the championship team. But it works when you have Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and Kyle Lowry. It doesn't work when you got Scottie Barnes, Christian Coloco, Precious Achiuwa, and Gary Trent Jr. That's what I'm saying. These guys are all under 23, and they don't have any experience to derive on making the free-form basketball that G's talking about. And that is the biggest problem at this point. Nick has coached this team the same way since the championship, and they can't at this point because they're too young and they're not as experienced as the championship team. And it's just that's part of the problem right there. G hit it nail on the head. Bam. Sheer Khan saying, GM, good morning, Raptors Freak family. I thought you were saying GM. Good morning, Raptor Freak family from Sheer Khan. Raptor Freak Rookie of the Year. I believe we have a good roster to build around, but need better coordination. We can't wait for Nick to make up his mind. If he's in, that's great. But we can't waste any more time. Next year, Raptors. Next year. That's right. Top 3. I like that, Sheer Khan. That's true. And we should hit the ground running right now. I know Nick wants some time off, and they probably will take a little bit of time off. Everybody. Fred's not rushing into whether he's going to opt out or not. He said that yesterday. He's like, yeah, you guys can wait. I know y'all get all dramatic, and you're going to write all about it and worry about this and this. But I'm going to take my time in dealing with this extension with Bobby Webster and Masai Ujiri. And, it may not happen right away. So you guys going to have stuff to talk about. Fred was saying he already knows that they're going to speculate and talk all this stuff. Like I said, once again, this is another kind of, there's 3 ways that things can go here with Fred. He can either not opt out and just stay on his contract and be on the team and just smooth sailing going forward. He could opt out, but it's very calculated and worked well with Bobby and Masai. And it's already kind of all worked out what the money's going to be, and that they have it all figured out and fitting in with our long-term plans. And it'll be something very fair to him and everything will be fine. Or the very worst thing that could happen is that they don't see eye to eye. Fred does see more money somewhere else, and he opts out and he does go and take a contract with somebody else. Now, I don't think the chances of that are very likely. Now, the chances of them trading Fred, that's not very likely either. So I really do think he's either going to not opt out and just stay on his contract for next year, or he will opt out. They'll rework his contract at a new rate, and it'll all work within things, and he'll still be a Raptor. So I'm going to tell all the Fred haters right now, there's probably, as I did, I'm doing thirds. There's a third chance of this, a third chance of this, and a third chance of this. 66% chance Fred will be a Raptor next season. I'm saying 33% chance Nick Nurse will be our coach next year, and 66% chance Fred VanVleet will be on our team next year. So there you go. And he's very much going to want to land in that 66% because he doesn't want to go through all the bullshit and the pain in the ass of moving his whole entire young family somewhere else. Trust me, he doesn't. He doesn't want to do that. Cool Cat's here. Good morning, Raptor Freak crew. Saw the interviews. They all love Toronto. Emotions. The interviews were fantastic. Everything that was said yesterday was all the right things from every single one of them. One of the things that was said yesterday that made me kind of sad was in Chris Boucher's interview. He said that they've never asked him to play for Team Canada and that he would if they asked him. In fact, he really wants to. I could tell. And that makes me sad because I feel like we need to get him involved in that program because in some ways he's a role player and Canada basketball needs that kind of role player on that team. So, Nick, pull some strings and get your Raptor on that team somehow, some way. If one of these other guys is a knucklehead and they don't show up or they're not going to be involved, it could be Dylan Brooks. Give Chris his spot. In fact, that would make sense since they're best friends. They're from Oregon days together. And Dylan, if you're not going to come and show up to practices or participate in our games and we keep giving you passes, maybe Chris will. And we should give that spot to him. I really do think that Chris Boucher needs to be on Team Canada. Figure it out, Nick Nurse. Figure it out, Rowan Barrett, and get him on the team. He deserves it. He's a dedicated guy. He's an NBA champion a couple times over, and he's a great kind of role player we can have on the Team Canada squad. So get get Chris on the Olympic team for Canada. He deserves it. Put him on there. I don't give a shit. Just get Chris on there. All right, let me see. What else are we saying? Race Mode Daily saying, I thought I'd shut off the Raptors when our season ended, but now I'm still here because the Raptor Freak Familia continues to be awesome. This is the home of the real ones. Nice work, Lex. Yeah, Edmund, I hope some of the stuff I said already today illuminates kind of things. They really did help us understand why we had dysfunction this season. I think Fred just nailed it on the head. We're just not organized. We don't have role definition. We don't have plays. We need to have set plays so that we come out there, we can know that we do them in our sleep because we drill them so much behind the scenes that's how really good NBA players teams do. And the other thing is we need to get that connectivity back together. In fact, Fred said something that was very interesting in his interview about how they do a lot of things behind the scenes, that there's very much camaraderie on the team buses, on the planes, and there's all kinds of conversations happening all the time. He said, if you heard some of the conversations that happen within the team that nobody will ever hear, you would blow your mind. That if you heard the discourse between Scottie, Pascal, Fred, Chris, Poeltl, Gary, everybody on the whole team, the way they talk to each other behind the scenes, it would blow your mind just how much they are together and they're cool and everybody's fine. That there's things about their relationships we just will never know because they're private and they're behind closed doors and they're locker room shit. And that's the thing, that stuff is fine. Fred made it sound like these guys have good communication and that they really are upfront and talk to each other. In fact, it may be that Fred let things go too much and he's not being a stern enough leader. And I think he's going to be more this year. That is the signal I got from him saying, I need to be more myself. And then in some ways, I think he was allowing room for Scottie to kind of be like more leadership on the team. But in some ways, he's not ready to be a leader. He's not mature enough. And he's also not savvy and experienced enough in the league. He has all the talent in the world. He could be a badass player. He could be one of the best players on the team, but he's not ready to be that leader yet. Now, he will be able to do it under the right tutelage and teachings of the coaches and the veteran players. But right now, Scottie can't be dependent on that. And that may be part of the problem is that Fred was allowing room for Scottie to be one of the captains, but he's not ready to take that mantle yet. And that Fred still needs to be more the dominant leader on the team. And in some ways, I'm saying he needs to be dominant as far as he has a level of excellence and like perfection that he wants to hold for the team and himself. And he has to he needs to tell these guys that this is the standard to be a Raptor in Raptors culture, and that y'all need to listen to me, and that we need to upkeep this standard, and that is how we become a winning team and be the badass team that the Raptors were before. That we have to uphold these traditions and cultural things about our franchise, and that if you're not towing the line of how we do things here, I will tell you. So I think in some ways that's what Fred needs to do is throw his weight around a little bit more and be more disciplined with the guys as far as like saying, this is how we do things here, guys. You cannot be like this. We have to be professional. We have to act professional. If we act professional, we practice professional, we do things professional, we will execute like professionals in close games and win close games that we should have won last year that we didn't. That is a huge part of it. You want to be a professional, you got to act professional. You got to make free throws. You got to be a professional, you got to act professional. You got to win games that are close and be the team that controls those games and wins those games and takes it home. Jimmy Pope saying the building is not falling like people think or hope. They will be ready for next season 100%. And Lex, if you don't think he calls plays at all, is kind of ridiculous. Does he just sit there? Like, come on. He has what he has is they're what are they called? They're sets. He has play sets. He's not specifically calling the individual plays. He'll basically say like a set. He'll say, all right, you guys set up on this way. And they have to figure out the sussing out themselves with the defense. What I'm talking about is like you can see very clearly on inbounds plays, sometimes a very clear, like a bunch of screens and cuts and misdirections. And you actually get like a really nice open shot because of the way that the play is set. We don't do that kind of stuff in situations when we're trying to win games. It's almost kind of like, yeah, just half-ass it. Throw the ball in and create something, Pascal. He relied so much on Siakam's talent to beat somebody one-on-one that he just overdid it with isolation over the last few years, where it's just like, okay, give it to Siakam, put the ball in his hand, call it. He calls their numbers, but he doesn't tell them how to do it. He says, go ahead, Siakam, beat him. And that's why Siakam looks so bad and he fails, is because he's not getting set up to succeed by the coach with a play that will put him in the highest percentage chance of making the shot for sure. It's really, he's coasting on, Siakam's got great talent. He's able to beat people all the time with shots over them or beating them to the basket. And we're just going to depend on that. And that's the difference, this kind of thing. He'll call the play and say, call the number of the player to try and do it. But is he actually calling the play where the synchronization of everybody moving together? Because part of it is they don't have their shit together enough to know how to move together to get that play like the Celtics would do. You know, the Celtics want to get Peyton Pritchard on an open three in the corner. They have a play where they can run guys around Grant Williams and Al Horford, and then boom, Peyton Pritchard is wide fucking open in the corner. That's what I'm talking about. We don't run plays like that. If we did, we'd have plays where Fred or Gary would be hitting corner threes like Peyton Pritchard does. And that's the difference. I'm sure he does coach. He yells things. He's more likely to yell on the defensive end and switching the defense from zone to man or switching like who's covering who, then he's going to call out something on the offensive end. He's very lazy on the offensive end. The offensive end has been disregarded for a couple of years on our team by the coaches, and it's really shown that our offense is not very good. And that's really a big part of it. Name's the same. My first impression watching the 905 this season, wow, way more structure. Yeah, the 905 had no structure either on their team. And that's a weird thing about them. I don't know if they, on a smaller microcosm level, they reflect the big team in some ways because they were totally disorganized. And I don't think it's anything on Eric Curry because in some ways the system and what they do has to mimic what Nick's doing on the bigger level. And that's part of it. And it does look way disorganized down there. It didn't look organized with who was going where. Management of the team by the coaches on whether who's going to 905 or coming back. That's been a big gripe I've had in a couple months. The management of the rotation with Nick, these are his Achilles heels, I'm finding. They're managing rotations, managing players between 905 and the main roster. and then managing the game with specific plays and situations and setting the guys up to succeed. These are our Achilles heels and problems. Leslie saying, I think Fred was looking at it like a dad. You have to have rules, discipline, and structure. That's exactly right. I think he tried to be a fun dad for the couple of years that Scottie's been on our team so far. And it worked in the first year because there was enthusiasm. It was all new. Scottie was kind of like, this is the NBA. I'm so proud to be here. And in some ways, his enthusiasm was a very positive energy on our team that really buoyed us in the first season of his rookie year. And then last year, it was a little bit more not fun. And it wasn't easy to get that bouncy Barnes out there in some ways, really, enthusiastically as it was his rookie year. And that's part of it. Now, Fred may have been like, I want to be the cool dad, the nice dad, the dad that's cool, everybody likes. Well, he may need to be the asshole dad. And in some ways, there's no problem with some of the guys being mad at him to a degree because he called them out or told them that they need to be better. Because they need to respect that he's an authority on this. And because he puts himself on such a high level himself, he's very critical of himself and he comes down on himself so hard that he's not that he's going to do the same thing to the other guys, but there needs to be a level of accountability to a degree from the captain of the team with the coach. And that's what I'm talking about right now is the captain with the captain and the coach. Let's see. G saying Bleacher Report came out. The front office was unhappy with that nurse interview and let him have it. Yeah, and they should have. They rightfully should have, Masai and Bobby, for sure. The timing of it was absolutely despicable. It was very poor judgment. In fact, it totally ruined my trust in Nick Nurse. I had a very much strong trust in him until that point. And now I have to question everything he does and what his motives are and whether he is actually good for our team just because of that, because he was not good for our team in that moment. He really wasn't. Fiercey saying, morning, fam. Hope you're well. Not fully recovered from the loss, but I do believe we need to hit rock bottom in order to rise back up. Enjoyed the interviews, feeling optimistic, still doubt Nick Nurse. Yeah, it's fishy. He came a couple of steps closer. He said that he does love Toronto. He does want to continue what he's built here with Masai over 10 years. In fact, he was indignant when he said that. I've been here 10 years building this culture, helping to build this culture. And why would you think I'd want to walk away from something that I worked so hard on? The interviewers were really good yesterday. They were hitting all the important questions. Like one interviewer asked Nick, well, you've kind of like switched jobs a lot over your career and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, in some ways I didn't really want to do that. I kind of had to do that for my career and trying new things and trying to get to new places and get higher up in my coaching career. I have a weird path to get to where I am at this point. I understand that. But that doesn't mean, he's kind of alluding, that doesn't mean that I get restless and I want to leave and go for new challenges. Because in some ways, that's kind of what that reporter was alluding to. Is like, is this time for you to go and try and find a new challenge? Now, Rockets fans are crazy right now. They're all about him getting fired and him coming right down to their team and saving them right now. They are all over Twitter talking about this like crazy. That they, in some ways, they may be pushing some of this narrative with Nick Nurse because they're so desperate to get him as their coach. That some of this noise about Nick Nurse not being happy in Toronto may be coming from Rockets Nation. That, he said yesterday, I have no idea where this came from. So there you go. There's a Jake Fisher debunction that like Nick Nurse did not put out that he's unhappy here. Nick Nurse did not put out that he wanted to go to Houston. Nick Nurse did not put out any of this stuff. And now it's a dumpster fire. He doesn't, but this is the thing that doesn't match up. And this is how I know Clutch did this on purpose and he was playing along. Is that he could have debunked this very easily before the Philadelphia game in that interview by simply saying these rumors aren't true at that point. Why did you wait until after the season to do this? That's the thing. That wasn't a healthy decision. You should have debunked it right away instead of making it kind of open air and like open-ended and kind of like, well, I have to reassess. 10 years is a long time and I'll have to see where I am with the management. Why didn't you just fucking say these allegations aren't true? Because they came from your management group and they wanted to make you have more hot commodity on you and drive up your price in the future. And I hate that because in some ways you're not being genuine to us by telling us that's basically why I did this. We know, we can see right through this, Nick. Get honest with us again. You know, this franchise is about honesty, integrity, and saying what you mean and meaning what you say. And that's why what you did recently, it just doesn't jive with Raptors culture. And that's why, in some ways, we don't trust you at this point because you very much played with a Clutch playbook to try and up your value. It backfired, and now you're playing coy about it, and you're backtracking. and you're trying to make it seem like you do want to be in Toronto now after what you said yesterday. This is tough. Once again, I'm going to let Masai decide this before I ultimately say get rid of him. I've already said get rid of him a bunch of times the last couple weeks, but I'm kind of in some ways, I do like Nick Nurse. I do like the steadiness of keeping him around, but I don't trust him to make the changes that I talked about already on the stream to make sure that they happen because we need those changes to be successful next year. We cannot do things the way we did them this year and expect expect different results. We need to make the changes, Nick, and you need to do it. If you don't, I don't want you as our coach. I really, really don't. I don't want you as our coach. If you're not going to change things to be more organized. Let's see. Rorschach saying, I had an epiphany. The player of the Raptors draft should be given the nickname Screech as a thank you to DR DeRozan for the pick. I don't know if this is a dunk. In some ways, this is almost a dunk, but I think it's more like a layup. It's close. It's very close. It may be like you almost dunked it, but it just like rimmed out. It's close, Rorschach. It's close. Now, when you say Screech, it makes me think of Dustin Diamond, Saved by the Bell star that's sadly passed very young at young age, who was in like celebrity boxing and stuff. Screech, yeah, from Saved by the Bell. G laughing at test. Let's see. Tom Duke's laughing. Trevor's saying, good morning. I think we need to develop our bench players, all the young guys on the bench, teach him how to play better. That's right, Trevor. That's a big part of what I've been talking about right now. What is this idea of a bench mob 2023 with Fred VanVleet, the captain still, the captain of the whole entire team and the known captain of the whole entire team, even though he's the sixth man and he could be in the awards for sixth man, he can still score a whole ton of points. But we have such a good balance in the two lineups for the team. That's what I'm saying, Nick. You have such a heavy balance on your starters of all your talent. You need to balance it out a little bit better. In some ways, this would be very smart. Let the bench mob captain go back to the bench mob. And then the pride of running that team and making it better. That's something that Fred wants so bad, is to help contribute to our team being successful. Well, give him a new challenge. Give him a challenge where he is the bench mob leader again. In some ways, it'll be familiar to him and he'll know how to do it very well. And that's the thing. In some ways, you want that inside competition between the starters and the bench mob rekindled, because that competition will drive us up in the standings. That competition will make us the number one team in the Eastern Conference. That competition will make the Raptors come back to around where they were in 2018, 2017, that kind of era. Because that is exactly what Dwayne Casey did at that time. He had that bench team really chomping at the heels of the starters, which encouraged both teams to be so much better than they should have been. And that's what I'm saying. You got the right tools and the right things, and Freddie will do this. I'm telling you, he may not totally like it, but in some ways it may be a really awesome new challenge for him. And in some ways it could really like make things really cool and interesting as far as like what we decide. You know, one of the things Nick's talking about is like we're still trying to figure out groups that go well together. What the fuck? You've tried so many damn different groups and combinations of different teams. How are you not noticing the right synergies and getting the right guys on the court together? You know, in some ways I see you do some of that stuff and it's been smart in the past, but in some ways I'm not seeing you really kind of like get defined lineups that really are, this is that lineup that does this. There's no rhyme or reason and there's no order to it. There's like solely different guys getting their chances at different times in the rotation. And then like the lineup combinations, in some ways you should have specific lineups that you like to go to, like a Koloko Boucher lineup. That's like, this is the Koloko Boucher lineup with these guys around them. And, you know, you have this lineup with Poeltl and Fred, you know, the pick and roll lineup of this. You got to get these kind of lineups figured out and sussed out and be more organized with those also. That those can be very helpful in like kind of like game situations. You have a certain game situation, maybe you're behind, maybe you're ahead. You got to hold the lead against the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday. You put out a defensive team for most of the last part of the game. This is the kind of stuff that why I hate that you just blanketly play your starters, overplay them, because you're not actually cultivating and utilizing every single player on your team in a way to bring them in and make them a part of a unit that means they belong to something and they can have ownership of winning the game also. That have a defensive team. Pick your two best defensive players off the bench and put them in with your three best defenders of the starters and have a really good closing defensive team that close the game out if you have a 10-point lead and doesn't let the other team get back into it. It seems like it's pretty obvious. It should be like OG, Scottie, Precious, I don't know, Chris, maybe Fred, something like that. That's what you need to do more of, Nick, is just be more like situational and organized. It will make so much of a dramatic difference with how we do on the court. It really will. Let's see. All right, let's get back in the comments. Great comments this morning, guys. Race Mode saying a full year of Fred and Poeltl will have us in the top 3 next year. Vision 6-9 was tough for structure because too much responsibility was put on all the players. And it was just like I said before, the ball's dropping. The baby is in the top floor and the fire is in the building. They got to throw the baby out and the firemen have to catch the baby in the net. Well, the net has holes in it because not every person's going to catch, or like they don't realize all the duties they got to do. And the baby falls through and nobody catches the baby because they're, oh, I thought you were going to catch the baby. No, I thought you were going to catch the baby. Nobody caught the baby. So the baby fell right through the net and nobody caught it. And that's what I'm saying. It's ambiguous about who takes care of what responsibilities. Sometimes the responsibilities don't get done because too many people have that job description that could fill that job. And that's part of the problem with our team. It's ambiguous about who will fill in each job on the team. And we need to have that more definition. And I'm totally with you on this, Edmund. As far as Fred and Jakob, we need to get more like this is the thing. Our system for this season didn't take into account that Jakob would be on our team. So in some ways, the system that Nick built last summer to go into the season didn't have anything really with him. And they added it all later and added in. In fact, Nick said all the stuff that I felt like I was going to do this season with the changes of how I was going to change what we're going to do at this point in the season, I got all thrown out the window because of injuries in the fall, and that he had to adjust and go on the fly. And everything that he thought he would do at different stages of the season this year went out the window because everything kind of went to shit in certain ways. And he had to do contingency plans. Well, in some ways, Jakob showing up, he wasn't ready or prepared. And he's kind of threw it together in the middle of the season. Well, if he has this whole offseason to really construct packages with Poeltl, working with Fred, we could see some really interesting, fun stuff. In fact, it could be like Malone and Stockton kind of shit that we could see over and over again. If he went pick and roll over and over again throughout the whole game and it just won over and over again, I wouldn't have no problem with it. I don't care about doing the same damn thing over and over again if it works every single time. If you can pick and roll Pascal and Poeltl, or Fred and Poeltl over and over again, or pick and roll Pascal and Scottie, I don't care what combination. Get a pick and roll offense going together this summer. It just seems like that's a really good, strong strength we have with our personnel on our team with really good big passers that you need to really abuse using the pick and roll next season. Don't fuck around, Nick. Do what works. Do what you know is very solid. If it's more Scottie down in the low post with really quick turnarounds and easy shots, high percentage shots, do it. Do the easier stuff in that way. The stuff that you know will make it easier for our guys to succeed, instead of doing the easier stuff where you just say, hey, go out there and play, guys. No, tell them what they need to fucking do and put them in the position to succeed. David's saying Nick was in denial yesterday. He had no idea where that came from. It was his comments that they were asking about. He's insane. I know that was really dumb too. The reporters did straight up put it on him about the whole way it happened. Like the way he describes how it happened, this is why we caught him in the clutch bullshit, because he's playing coy. He's trying to be like, I didn't start the rumors. I don't know where they came from. Oh, fuck, bullshit, Nick, in some ways. But then all right. He said, I don't know how to react to them or say something. Well, just fucking tell the truth. If you're saying it now that you didn't start the rumors, why didn't you fucking say it then? That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, Brian Winders, you could have easily shot those rumors down against before we played Philadelphia that day, instead of opening the door and keeping it kind of aloof. Like, whoa, I could be leaving. You fucking did that, Nick. So you can't blame the pet press because you didn't debunk their theories when you had the chance. In fact, you opened it up to the possibility that they were actually true. And that made things really, really toxic and fucked up on our team for the last 2 weeks of the season. So that is totally on his fault. Nako's saying, I'd say put Nurse on a leash for next season. Seeing us develop on Scottie's timeline is the most important. So Earl could be better. We should also try to keep Fred, if for nothing but Scottie's development. For sure. For sure. Fred is actually going to be a huge part of Scottie's success. I saw it. The way he was talking about what he's talking to Scottie about is exactly the stuff that he needs to work on and he will get better from it. Fred is a key to Scottie becoming the absolute best player he can become. That he needs the knowledge from him, just like he needed the knowledge from Lowry before him. That this is really the things that Scott can learn from Fred are very deep and very good, and they will mean more money for him and more esteem, more prestige, more awards, more top level being all NBA's top player. And he can do it. They see it all. They believe in him. In fact, Fred looked a little giddy with the prospect of how good Scottie could get, that he can assess that. This is the whole thing that people don't realize, that Fred wants to see Kawhi be Kawhi. Fred wants to see Kyle be Kyle. Fred wants to see Pascal be Pascal. Fred wants to see Scottie be Scottie. That it's not a jealousy thing. It's not nothing like that on this team. These guys aren't jealous dudes. In fact, this is the thing. They failed this year at being successful. It's hurt their contract this summer. That in some ways they got to understand, you can't go a roundabout way and be selfish and try and play for yourself. Because if you don't play team ball and the team doesn't succeed overall, you don't look as good, and you won't get as much money. And that's the thing. They all have to succeed for them all to get paid. The Gary and Fred, both of them, in some ways, opting out of their contract and trying to do what they want. It doesn't look as good from this season as it would have from other times. And that's part of the problem with playing selfish or only worrying about yourself. It's like they say, we take care of the team and we play well and we win. Everything else will sort itself out and work out. And that is why they needed to win this year. Because in some ways, not winning this year hurts Fred and Gary's value this summer in what they're trying to do with their contracts. So let's keep going. Nameless is saying, let's fucking go. I'm feeling happy again. Part of that was finding the forgiveness in my heart for DR. I feel pretty petty being upset at a girl. We don't really want Nurse to go. Changeover is no good for business. I love this turnaround from Nameless. Buongiorno. Très bien. Oh, wait, that's French. Yeah, this is really good, Nameless. I like to hear that you've turned it around. See, that's what I'm saying. Perception, how you feel about something is up to you. If you really want to hate that little girl, go ahead and hate her. But in some ways, you got to just laugh at it. Seriously, just laugh at it, man. Yeah, and I love that you're kind of with me at this point. It's like, I don't know about Nick leaving. I understand the part of what I don't trust about him, but I also, in some ways, don't like the unknown of switching your coach. I don't like, in some ways, we do know, like the players all said they love playing for him. Like Fred had a ringing endorsement for Nick, that I love playing for Nick. Nick is my guy. And, Scottie, same thing. So there's all these guys were standing up for Nick and saying that they do like playing for Nick. So some of the fractures and problems with our team aren't exactly clear. It's really with the system. It's really with the system. The system was so unorganized. That is what we might need to blame. And in some ways, I can detach that from Nick if Nick can get rid of his old system and start fresh this summer. I will give him another chance if he can do a more traditional system in all the ways that I've described on the stream already. Let's see. David's saying, I don't think Fred is good for Scottie's development. That is wrong. Scottie needs the effing ball in his hand. It's not Fred's. Ask Scottie. That is all wrong. That is all wrong. And that's Pensair talk. That's Pensair talk right there, David. That is. And if you weren't one of my most valued Raptor freaks, oh my gosh. All right, let's pick this apart real quick. Fred is definitely good for Scottie. You go watch the end of Freddie's interview yesterday, David. If you haven't watched Fred's interview, watch the last 5 minutes and listen to how he talks about Scottie and listen to what he's saying about what Scottie needs to do next. That's the thing. Scottie needs guidance. Scottie is like a big piece of clay that we can mold into something. And in some ways, one of our best sculptors on this team is Fred, and that Fred can help mold him into the best possible NBA player that he can be. So this is the truth of the situation. And this is the thing. Fred's not going to take away from him getting shots. Fred's not going to take away from him developing. In fact, he's going to help him and encourage him and be more of a safety net on the court. Scottie said nice things about Freddie yesterday. You go watch his interview. He said he loves playing with Fred, that Fred is a fantastic person to be on the court with. So there's no issue that Pensair has made up on his channel. It's all bullshit. In fact, the interviews yesterday did more damage to Pensair's channel than anything in recent days. There's all kinds of shit on there that is directly in opposition of his fucking stupid narratives that he puts out on his channel. So, listen, I'm going to disagree with you completely on all of this. The Scottie doesn't need the ball totally yet, But this is the thing. The thing I described for next season, if they start Scottie as point guard, but he has a cane, they'll rip him out of the game if he's making too many turnovers. He's screwing up right at the beginning. But they give him a chance to get going. But if he doesn't make it, then Fred's coming in, he's running things off the bench. And it could be 2 minutes in the game. Like Scott could fuck up right away and be really, really bad. Now, you may not take him out of the game, but you put Fred in and you let him start running the point guard then. Because part of the problem is Scottie's not ready to be a point guard in the NBA. He makes too many turnovers. He's not savvy enough. He's not experienced enough. But we need to let him do it with training wheels. And this is the way you do it. You let him start at point guard, but you have Fred come off the bench as soon as there's any kind of chaos or problem or the game's slipping away because the other team's kicking our ass. Then you bring in Fred's competitive ass with the bench mob, and they fix shit up. Because Freddie may have that pride again like they did before where they like to build on top of the lead. The starters come out and the bench comes in and they absolutely killed the bench from the other team. This was all such a powerful thing when Casey was coaching us and we had this. And that's what I'm saying. Scottie's going to get the ball in his hands anyway, but this is the thing. Everybody who thinks Scottie cares about having the ball in his hands all the time are wrong. That's not what this is. Scottie is very much a glue guy, and he'll pass it just as much as he'll shoot it. And that's not what he worries about. He's not worried about his scoring. He's not worried about scoring all the time. He wants to be a good all-around player. And in some ways, he needs Fred next to him so he can hit him up for an assist from him hitting a three. So, yeah, once again, I think I've debunked your statement enough at this point. Now, you ask Scottie. Go ask him. Watch his interview yesterday, and you'll see exactly what he feels about Fred. There's no problem with Scottie and Freddie. Pensair's bullshit has been debunked, just like Jake Fisher's, just like Bob McCown's, just like Doug Smith's. All the bullshit that people put out about the Raptors got debunked yesterday. That's why yesterday's interviews were so cleansing, because they opened our eyes and they told us what the fuck's been happening with them. They didn't listen to the noise. The noise was all bullshit. They fucking hate it. OG loves being in Toronto. Scottie and Freddie love getting together and playing together. They all believe in Nick and they love Nick. Nick still wants to coach us. These are all the cliff notes from yesterday. This is all the cliff notes right there. Go and watch. Seriously. Space Cadet's saying Scottie would disagree with you, David. Exactly, David. He said it to us last summer. He talked about Freddie. He watched his highlights, said Fred's so fun to play with. He wants to give him the ball to get threes and vice versa. Fred sets him up with nice passes. What's not to like between the two of them playing together in their synergy? So, yeah, Space Cadet is right. David is wrong in this case. All due respect to Raptors Freak Trivia leader David Saborin. Wayne's here. Raptor Freaks, we are who we are, future champions. That's right. And I like the whole idea is like, let's detach the linkages to the championship, but we still have some of the people that were involved in that. But detach that kind of whole idea and that whole thing. And we're in a new era. And in some ways, we have to build a new identity and find a new path back to the Larry O'Brien with this new era. And that's the difference. In some ways, maybe we're trying to do things still kind of like the championship era. And now we need to change it to get to our second championship of era and go back to maybe some more traditional basketball. Really get back to five positions and half court kind of shit with pick and roll. Let's see. Cool Cat saying, Raptor Freak, I want a vision 6'9" plus tall guys and only one short player on the court each time. The league is using our vision 6'9", plus we just need out trees to learn to shoot. Our trees. Yeah. I'm okay with this. I think position 6'9" has value, and I think it's something that we need to use, but it's something we need to use like a zone defense or a man-to-man defense. It's like switching a defense instead. It's like we can very much put a 6'9" vision out there, but it has to work. It has to functionally work because of the matchup we're against on the other team. Then if there's some little guy on the other team and we're playing vision 6'9" and they're absolutely schooling us and getting easy baskets at the basket, then don't play vision 6'9". Get smaller guards out there to guard them. If we're playing vision 6'9" and Joel Embiid is absolutely killing us as a dominant center, well, then put Poeltl out there. And, that's kind of where I see it. It's like play vision 6'9" when you can get away with positionless basketball, but don't play it to the detriment of the team because the other team has certain personnel out there that doesn't match up well with us playing vision 6'9" against it. That's kind of where I'm at with this. It's not something we can do all the time. It's not something we can just have. Our team is positionless 24/7. We've got to really pick and choose our spots where we put a positionless team out there to be the most effective times. And that running it all the time is no good. You're going to have to go like switching it just like the defenses. Nick switches from man-to-man to zone. We got to switch from positionless to traditional. Positionless to traditional. And in fact, that could be a very fun way to keep the other team on the toes by switching it at a moment's notice, just like we switch our defenses. So let's see. David's saying, I'd be floored. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying, David, I don't like this. I don't like this. Don't come after Fred right now. There's no reason to come after Fred. Jimmy's saying, if the players didn't choke late games multiple times, we would be in the playoffs and most likely would have a better record. The players choked multiple times. That's the reality. Well, the argument I'm making, Jimmy, is that they choked because they weren't set up to succeed by their coach. And they weren't set up in two ways. They were too tired because they were ran ragged the whole damn game as the starters. And then they weren't set up in like a play situation specifically to have the play and the motion of the players be set up by the coach to be successful. They really just went out there and played it the way that they thought on themselves. And that's the thing. You need leadership. You need one cook in the kitchen. This is what the Leafs organization learned for many decades. You can't have a lot of people trying to run the team at once. And that's why we're so effective at the top, because Masai literally runs the team at the top. But on the coaching side, in some ways, he's being too diplomatic and allowing ownership of coaching on Fred and Pascal and different people on the coach on the court instead of the coach. And that's what we need. We need Nick to be the guy. This is what we do, and you guys need to do this. And if you don't execute the plan this way, because in some ways he's allowing it to be too freeform and allowing them to fill in the blanks. Well, does this make sense? That the guys would not be connected or on the same page if it's not organized and like concrete what they're supposed to be doing. And that's really the biggest problem with our team is it's not organized, that it's just too freeform and go just do it, dudes. And they need the structure. They need to be told how to do it. And those situations you're describing, Jimmy, will come out way better in the outcome when we do that. In some ways, Nick could get away with this with Kyle Lowry on the team because he's a coach on the court, just like we've been saying on this channel. That they could get away with the free form, like go and do it, guys. Kyle's out there and he's doing the coaching kind of ideas on the court in the moment on the court. Well, in some ways, Fred's not totally good at that with Kyle. And some of it is like the leadership and like Kyle getting everybody all the ducks in a row on the same page on the court with what's going to happen on the next play. In some ways, Fred is not very good at that and totally in this way. And that's why Nick needs to do it himself. And that's why we did not execute in late game situations. They need to get structure. Wayne's saying, without Nick Nurse, go play guitar and wherever. Listen, man, he can't leave Toronto. He's in the Arkells. He has to be here so he can be here with Max in the Arkells so he can play his jams, man. Leslie's saying free range coaching can work with a veteran team, but with a young core, they need to be told what to do. Exactly. Bam. Hit the nail on the head, Leslie and Hart. That is very succinct and exactly kind of what we've been saying here. Yeah, this is exactly right. Free range coaching will work with veterans that have been in the league for like 10 years, but it won't work with players that are under 3 or 5 years. G's saying, I'm manifesting a shot creator, Hooper, this draft. That would be so nice, and that will work so well. Ooh, that's what I'm saying. Even these guys will make better shots if there's more structure, if there's more organization. In some ways, Gary is very good in the chaotic because he's so good at manufacturing his shots just in any moment on any spot of the court. He's easy at stepping away and just like shooting quick shots. And in some ways, he can thrive in that kind of environment, but it's not really totally good for him. And in fact, it may be very interesting to see him in a more structured offense, how much better he shoots consistently with everybody being organized. That's something that I will want to look at next year. If he is going to be on our team again, that's a weird one. You know, I did my percent chances on Nick Nurse, 33% chance I think he'll be back next season. Fred, 66% chance. And now Gary, I'm going to say there's probably about 33% chance he'll be back with us next season because there's going to be three areas of 33% each. The area where he matches up with Masai and Bobby and the money, and it does work, and it works with making sense of our piece of the pie with our future plans for the whole team overall. Then there may be like somebody a suitor for him outside, another team that's really willing to throw huge money at Gary that he can't say no to. That's probably going to be like a 33% chance here. And then the 33% chance is that we aren't actually interested in him at all. and that we don't care and that he's just going to walk. And so I say there's about a 33% chance Gary will be back next season, like a 1 in 3 chance. So he's very similar to Nick as far as with that. Now with Poeltl, I'm going to say that there's almost a 100% chance with him. I'm going to say there's a 90% chance Poeltl will be back on our team, 66% chance Fred will be back on our team, 33% chance that Nick and Gary Trent will be back on our team. That's just my prospective looking at the whole thing and kind of those chances. So let's see. Race mode saying nameless. How can you still be mad at DR? 20,000 fans are yelling at the opposing player during free throws. One girl yelling, Raptors need to be tougher. I mean, can we get her back on our team? Can we get her back on the Raptors side of things? I don't know. Probably not. It's daddy's girl. She's going to go with daddy. David saying, I think everyone should go back and watch the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter for every game this season and honestly say that we need Fred to be our leader. All right. Once again, David, he ran him ragged, so he was tired at the end of games. He didn't organize them. In some ways, Fred can try and do it on his own, but he's limited by his height. And if he tries to take over and do one-on-one kind of isolation stuff, it won't look good. It won't look good. Fred looks way better when he plays off of other people and helps them to be successful. Or they play off of him and give him the ball where he's open on the outside. Like a Pascal goes in, collapses the defense, pass it out to Fred for a 3. That's the thing. He's not good in one-on-one in isolation, obviously because of his physicality and who he is. That's why they need to play a team game in those kind of situations. And Fred will not thrive in isolation, kind of like just try and beat them, and they're not organized. That's why it doesn't look good. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. It's very much Nick setting them up to fail. And it's not necessarily what you think with Fred. Now, there were periods of time during the season where Fred went cold and he had trouble with his shot, but there were also periods of the season where he was absolutely electric and fantastic shooting. And there was way more of that. And the other thing about Fred this season, he had a very healthy season. He had a very successful year taking care of his body. And one of the things he said in the interview yesterday is he got a new strength and conditioning coach that really helped a lot with keeping his strength up the whole entire year. This guy's committed to doing absolute best things he can to help our team win. And David, seriously, go watch Fred's interview. I don't think you did watch it yet. Watch Fred's interview and see how your opinion about him changes when you just hear the words out of his mouth and understand how intelligent he is. If you don't listen to him and you don't actually hear the voice, what he's saying, I don't know what to tell you at this point. Listen to Fred's interview and really listen to it, David, and understand you'll fall in love with him as our captain and important Raptor all over again because he's just that dude, man. Space Cadet saying, I think you're mistaking leadership with the best player who takes the final shot. Yeah. And that's not the same thing necessarily. That is not necessarily the same thing. You got your team captain who's just in general the leader and kind of takes care of like problems maybe between players, problems with accountability, kind of like, guys, we need to up our game as a team. And then you got like a clutch player who's maybe more supposed to be Pascal, honestly, at the end of the game. But Fred's been known for hitting game shots last year. And in some ways, there was a whole bunch more smoothness to it and a lot more organization in the last couple minutes of games last year than there was this year. And that's why we had more success in late game situations, winning close games last year. And Fred was hitting the shots then. And he has a proven track record to do this. So let's look at, the seasons as like shots. Maybe that last season was a 3 made by Fred, and this season was a 3 not made by Fred. But next season will be very much a season where a 3 made by Fred. So it's just like on and off years. He had a little bit of an off year this year, but he was mostly healthy, and there were really good parts of the season and crazy, amazing things he did also. So Race Mode saying, do you guys remember the video of Lowry shooting practice shots on the same night of a tough loss? We need more of that mentality with all our players. Well, I think that's exactly what happened. None of these guys went to sleep. In the interview yesterday, every single one of them said, like Scottie, Pascal, Fred, Nick, all of them could not sleep after they lost to Chicago. They're all upset. They're all mad. They all came in all blurry-eyed and tired because they did not sleep Wednesday night after they lost to Chicago. Now, you know what? They could have been done all kinds of things. Pascal said he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't thinking. He was just kind of just up. But some of them may have been in the gym working their ass off overnight after that game because of that. Who knows? Maybe some of them were shooting free throws like crazy after the game that night. We don't know for sure. But I think that there were some of the guys that were like that Lowry in that video that you're talking about, Edmund. So we don't know. Cool Cat saying Nick Nurse's style is for veterans with experience and high IQ. This is true. He can't use that style with our players that are too young. They need role definition and plays to learn. Exactly. Yes. Cool Cat saying it just like we're saying it in a different way, but it very astute and very descriptive. Exactly. This is exactly right what Nick Cool Cat's saying about Nick Nurse. That we're too young for the leadership kind of way that he's doing things right now. That we need the structure. We need the young people to learn. And that may be where he's failing. Wayne's saying, well said, Cool Cat. See, there you go. Cool Cat's getting kudos for that. You know what? Even though it's not normally a dunk, I'm going to give her a dunk just for a very astute, nice comment that just makes sense. Cool Cat's not, normally a joker, very serious, but she's going to get a dunk today for saying something succinctly and very clearly that is exactly right. And people are giving her kudos for it, so I might as well too. Race Mode saying, Cool Cat, let's get more IQ on the team. I'm still on team Nick Nurse as much as I believe in Fred VanVleet. Awesome. See, in some ways, I'm coming back to Nick too. That interview yesterday did help things. It helped things way more than it hurt things. It's just, I'm like, what the fuck, Nick? Don't listen to Clutch. Don't do toxic shit to fuck up our season. This season's been horrible, and you wanted to fuck it up? We could have had a nice little bow on the end of it with a couple of nice things, but you really fucked things up and step in it. And honestly, you would have gone a lot more with me in my books if you had just admitted that you regretted that press conference before Philadelphia. You could have easily done that, but no, in some ways you're being a little arrogant about it and saying, no, I don't regret it. Well, you should, because you did not help things with the team. It was destructive for the team. And I don't think you got the right and needed effect that you wanted as far as with your negotiations with your contract either. So it was a big fail, and you should probably regret it. Let's see. Nameless is saying, so hold on. We're going to pay a guy 30 sheets or more to come off the bench? I'm not so sure, Capitano. Yeah. Yes. And see, this is part of the mentality we got to beat, Nameless. Seriously. This is part of why we don't value the bench or have good bench players, because everybody makes a big deal about bench versus starters. In the old NBA, this wasn't as big a deal as everybody makes it. Everybody worries about who starts and who doesn't way more. The prestige of that is not as great. The prestige of that is so stupid in some ways. There's guys in the old NBA that were only six men their whole careers, and they were fantastic players, and they never ever started. Ricky Pierce is a really great example of this. Ricky Pierce of the Milwaukee Bucks from the 80s was a 20-point scorer, and he barely started in his career. He won so many six-man awards and stuff, and he was just a fantastic player. There's nothing wrong with the stigma. And in fact, I don't mind paying people on the bench. There's a lot of teams in this league. The Lakers probably have a $30 million guy off the bench. There's other teams in the league that have $30 million guys on the bench, So there's no stigma in this. And in fact, it doesn't even really matter if he starts or not. It's the minutes that you should be looking at. If he plays like 30 to 35 minutes a game average, then it's all worth it if you pay him $30 million a year. And in fact, once again, I'll say something like this. Even if Fred starts to come off the bench at some point, if it's not this year, I think it's a smart thing to do this year because of my proposed plan. But even if he does at some point, and we're still paying him a good amount of money, like I said, he's accrued it from all of the things he's done for our team already. That I don't mind paying him $30 million a year, even if he's a bench player. So yeah, get over yourself, Nameless, with this. There's no reason to be like that about this. I think that too many modern fans of the NBA really put too much importance on whether you start or not. And somebody like Gary Trent Jr. has shown you that it doesn't fucking matter if you start or not. So yeah, there you go. Lion Hunter saying, I wonder if Fred would opt in just for just that 1 year. I also don't think he's coming off the bench if he's re-signing. Well, all right. Lion Hunter is somebody that I very much see eye to eye with all the time, and I'm on the same page with. I'm going to disagree a little bit with you right here. Yeah, I think Fred might still just stay on his contract. It may be way more of a headache to try and figure it out. But then I don't know. Maybe it makes us even more of a headache next summer when even more guys and it's more cloudy and crazy. In some ways, this may be the last dance for this crew this season. If they don't find huge success next season, then we may be blowing up the team to a certain degree next summer. And that may be like line it all up and just let him play this contract out this year. Don't opt out. And boom, then he can be like wide open through all kinds of different avenues, depending on how we do this year coming up. So the part about him not coming off the bench, in some ways, it may hurt his pride. But if you sell it to him that it will help the team win and be more likely to win a championship, he'll do it. He'll do it because that's the thing he said that he only cares about. He doesn't care what his role is specifically. He wants to win and he wants to win championships and he wants to be known as a champion. And in some ways, him doing this will actually strengthen our team and fortify it in the area where we're in the worst place. Think about it. We have no bench. You put Fred on the bench, we've got a bench. We definitely have a bench then. And especially if he's the leader of our bench and we have like bench mob kind of feelings about our team again, think about that, Lion Hunter. In some ways, Fred, when he was talking about the bench mob with CJ on that Amit Man podcast, it was like they were revisiting really happy memories. And in some ways, it may be very much like coming home for Fred in a way that it will be very rewarding and very much a new challenge to him. It's just that the outside people, like nameless, will be like, well, he's not starting. What is this? Or he's getting demoted or something like that. No, you don't sell it that way. In fact, you promote him and make him even more the forefront and more well known as the captain. And he'll go more in time with what he's trying to say about he needs to be more himself. Well, in some ways, you can make him the team captain off the bench, and he will be like even more effective because in some ways he'll watch from the bench from the beginning of the game and kind of understand what we're doing wrong, and he'll come out and try and fix it from an outside perspective when he comes in. And in some ways, like I said, we give Scottie the ability to try and blossom, so he's not held back. Like a lot of people worry about his development being held back, but he still has a safety net if he's being young and he's being inexperienced and making a lot of rookie kind of mistakes or like young mistakes. So that's what I think there's nothing not to like about this plan that I proposed right here. And that I think you'd be shocked to see how Fred will buy into it. There's a lot of illustriousness in Norman Powell coming off the bench for the Clippers. Lou Williams. There's so many different great players that have been bench players that have made a name for themselves in that way. Fred's already done it in the starting lineup. He's done it all. He's been in an all-star. He's been we know he's a starter level guy. And in some ways, it will just show the depth and the really greatness of our team by putting him off the bench, that we can afford to have him off the bench because we have 5 guys that can start too other than him. So there's a lot of strength in this. There really is. And it fixes a lot of our problems. It really does. Wayne's saying competent, effective assholes are necessary. Niceness is for losers. Doesn't mean you don't have empathy. It means you lead and not be concerned about telling a friend to tell his kid to shut up. Yeah, that edge is important. And maybe that's a little bit of what we're talking about. Fred needs to have a little bit more of an edge and be a little bit more like disciplined with being a leader on the team, as far as being like, we need to be disciplined. We need to do things a certain way. We need to carry ourselves a certain way as Raptors so that we can be the most professional and be the most prepared in the do or die situations that we may be put in as a team. And that situation was Wednesday night, and they didn't act professional or do the things that Raptors culture demands of it. In some ways, Fred has to be the one that teaches the young players on our team what it means to be a Raptor and what Raptor culture means. And that's why I really think when he said, I need to be more myself, is the lesson I learned from this year. I really do think he's become a stronger leader. And people are going to see that, and they're going to think it's even worse than it was last year, when they don't even realize that he wasn't being as strong a leader as he could have been last year, as he should have been. And I really do agree with this. I mean, you got to go with your smart players. He is such an intelligent person. You watch his half-hour interview from yesterday, and on every aspect of what he's asked about, he's just on point, and he's just really, really thought things out. He's very mature. He's very steady. He's just really brilliant in some ways. He's just a brilliant person. Seriously, that's the word I have for Fred, is brilliant. And some people that hate him will be like, their heads will explode when they hear me say he's a brilliant person. Go watch that interview and what he was saying, and you will decide what I'm saying too. You'll see it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, I'm all about getting more edge. If we make a personnel move this summer and we get somebody who's really edgy, that would be fantastic. But I do think we have the edge on our team. It's just we need to cultivate it and develop it more. Scottie has that edge. It's just we need to get him confidently showing it on the court. and just allow him to be in positions where he can be in that relish it and put it out there. There are guys on our team that can be very hard-nosed. Fred is one of them too. Fred is definitely one of those guys that has an edge. It's just he's a certain limited powers in that edge and how he can use them on the court. That's what we got to figure out. It's got to have the whole team has got to have an edge to a degree. Shane's saying top 5 reasons for failure. Number 5, 28 different starting lineups. Some of that couldn't have been avoided because of injuries, but I get it. You're right. Continuity would be better. More than 10 substantial ref hit jobs. Yeah, I can get behind that. It sounds about the right number for the whole entire 82 season. There was at least 10 games where the refs very much railroaded us to a loss. There may have been even more. Number 3, nurse's inability to change a game plan on the fly. That's not actually the problem. He does that. He's pretty good, but he's a little late on it. And sometimes he waits too long to call timeouts or sub guys. But it's really like the problem is with him just like setting them up to succeed. Kind of, I don't want to sound like a broken record. You know what I've said over and over again on this subject. And then 2, Otto's paternity leave. I'm not blaming that for anything. I mean, you guys really think that Otto is going to be that much of a savior to us, but he really wasn't. He's like the level of a Thad on our team. He's not going to be like an end-all be-all. He's not like a Gary Trent Jr. He's more like a Thad as far as like what he would give to us. And then shooting. Yeah, shooting definitely. Shooting was the biggest problem, like as far as like you can't fucking make the baskets, you can't win. Mike's here. Salute the real ones. Project Truth, always logical Raptors fanatic. Checking in. I haven't started checking everything yet, not gonna lie. I had things on delay that I'm getting done now. So staying positive. I'm kind of on an unplug at the moment. Well, Mike, I want you to do this right now. I'm giving you homework right this second because I know you're the man for this. There's so many good sound bites that you need to go in mind from yesterday's interviews. Mike, get back to work. Don't fucking take time off right now. Be like me. Get back in there and get that editing clips studio and start carting out the really good, juicy pieces and fight that fight against Pensair. Because you know what? That you could make a piece just from yesterday's interviews that would be so badass, that would be so positive about what's going on with us. You need to watch them, Mike. Don't take any time off. Those interviews are fresh. And I was watching them and it literally thought about you when I was watching them. Because I said, you know what? That's something that Mike needs to edit right out and put in one of his pieces right away. Because it's exactly what the Raptors fans need to hear from the horse's mouth of Fred, Scottie, Pascal. You could go there and cut the parts from Scottie and Freddie's interviews and just put them on blast, and you will debunk everything that Pensair's channel is all about. Seriously, that is all right there for you to go and take. You're so good at editing and taking Masai clips from press conferences. Go and do the work on the stuff yesterday. Seriously, you're going to mine gold. You're going to find and in all the interviews, there's at least one quote that you could use that is really, really good for Project Truth. So, Mike, I know you want to check out because the season's over, but the optimism and the things that were said by our personnel yesterday are outstanding. And you need to get on the ground and get it and put it out there in a way that people see it and understand what Project Truth's all about. Because we need that. We need that more than ever. The evidence against Pensair is there from yesterday. Cut it up. Put it in a nice little, make a short, honestly. Make a short. Don't even do one of your long normal drops. Do a very short thing that just basically debunks Pensair and watch, you will go viral. Seriously, Mike, you have the skills. Go and debunk Pensair with a piece today. Make it a 5 to 10 minute piece and just highlight the things that Scottie and Freddie and different people said yesterday on that particular subject, and you will debunk his whole entire channel. You have the power, and I know you can do it, Mike. Please, I'm calling out to you. That's not my strength. I can't do that. I can say it on here, but you could make a short piece, and I'm telling you, it may make your channel blow up. Seriously, target Pensair in it too. Tag him in it and call him out and show him exactly the truth. And everybody in Raptors Nation will come and follow your channel. I'm telling you, Mike, you do this, you will get it. Amit's saying, yo, yo, Amit the GOAT. Are you Amit, man? No, because you're in Israel. So you can't be Amit, man. I was like always thinking Amit. I started thinking Amit, man. Is Amit the GOAT Amit, man? No, it's Amit the GOAT. He lives in Israel. Space Cadet saying, I don't know, Lex. If we were putting him on the bench role, he might actually leave. A team like Miami would probably give him a starting job and chance to win. That's just my opinion. Well, that's not what matters to him. The chance to win is what matters to him. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling you, in some ways, it may hurt his ego. And you guys may not think this is true just because of Penn-Stare's propaganda all season. But I'm telling you, he's that kind of guy. He would do this. Seriously, he would do this. And especially if we sold it to him the right way. Look, we're going to make you more prominently, visibly the head team captain. And we're really going to treat you this way. We're going to call you the captain in broadcast. We're going to put you, like, maybe we even announce that you're the captain if you do get to start from time to time. We just put so much more prominence on his role as the captain and the leader of the team that it won't matter that he's coming off the bench. Seriously, you can do this in a way that the prestige doesn't go away for him and he continues his legacy. It's just that we're trying something new and we see if it works. Now, if guys get hurt in the starting lineup, and well, maybe you do bring him in then. But I really do like this idea of we won't have any letdown with the bench coming in if Fred is leading it, because he really does know how to get them organized opposite the starters. He really does. He has a proven track record of this. He did it so well for like 3 years for us. In some ways, yeah, he's had years as the starter now. Well, maybe in some ways, I mean, and the people that hate Fred would love this idea because in some ways it lessens him being such a focal point, but it doesn't totally. It's hidden. He still plays a huge amount of the game. It's just that he's not technically starting. Once again, starting is just bullshit. It's just a fucking label. People put way too much importance on whether a player starts or doesn't start. And that's part of the problem with our team right now. In fact, Nick's made it partly that because of the way he does the things with the starters and stuff. That's what I'm saying. Give some shine and some, credibility and some good things about the start or the bench. Like there's no shame in coming off the bench. There really isn't. Ask Kevin McHale. Ask Lou Williams. There's no shame in coming off the bench. There's no shame in trying to be the sixth man of the year. Malcolm Brogdon, look at what he did in Boston this year. You don't think Fred VanVleet could be our Malcolm Brogdon and it would solve everything for our team? Seriously, look at the Boston Celtics with Malcolm Brogdon about to win the sixth man of the year award. We could do this with Fred and it wouldn't be a problem. Was Malcolm Brogdon starting for the Indiana Pacers? Yes. Now he doesn't for the Boston Celtics because he's on a better team. And I'm not slighting Fred on this. I'm telling you, do you think Malcolm Brogdon is slighted for coming off the bench with Boston? No, he's getting prestige. So that's what I'm saying. It's not as crazy as you think. Seriously, he would do it. He would do it. If they could outline to him how they think that they would be much better and have a better chance to win a championship, he'll do it. Because that's what he cares about. He doesn't care about the personal shit. This is the thing that they made everybody think this year. Fred does not care about the personal shit. He cares about the team winning overall and getting closer to winning more championships. And that's why he will make the sacrifices himself. And this isn't even really making a sacrifice. It's just a sacrifice in the eyes of people that look at it in a way that's like, oh, this is so important whether you start or not. It's bullshit. It's just fucking more current, like casual, recent fans that think that starting matters so much. Make such a fucking big deal out of it. It's a symptom of ESPN media making a big deal out of it and making it like seem like it's a have and have not situation. Well, it is on our team. We need to change that. So let's put some of the haves on the bench. And then boom, you have halves on both the bench and the starters. You have a better bench. That's just what you have to do, Nick. I mean, that's the easiest way to fix your bench is to do this. And even if, Miami's not going to want to get him. They already got Kyle. Callie's saying, I wasn't a fan of Nurse's interview. He didn't take accountability. I can agree with this. As far as Fred, he's not as good as he thinks he is. His stats were mediocre all year. Love Scottie's and OG's interviews. Well, that's part of it. Like Callie probably wouldn't be upset with my plan. I in some ways I agree with you. Nick didn't take enough accountability, although he did kind of allude that they didn't do a good job coaching this year. He did. He didn't outright say it, but in some ways, it's like that's part of what they have to evaluate. They're going to evaluate every single player, whether they develop, what they did with each one of them, and then they're going to evaluate their own selves and how they coached and whether they coached well or not in certain situations. They're going to find they didn't coach very well in a lot of situations. And you're right. And it may be that we don't hear the accountability, but he will have the accountability with Masai. Trust me. That Masai will have a very tough meeting with him and tell him exactly how he failed this year. And hopefully he'll take accountability behind the scenes. And if he doesn't say the right thing to Masai, maybe he's out the door. We'll have to see. G saying with Fred on the bench, there are no 3-point shooters except OG. I think floor spacing would be an issue. Well, that's depending on Pascal and Scottie to increase their 3-point shooting and make themselves better at threes. That is part of it. Or even, what if you maybe you start Gary instead? Like Gary could be in the starting lineup with Fred on the bench instead. You don't have to start Precious. It could be Scottie, Gary, OG, Pascal, and Poeltl. And then you have the 3-point shooting in Gary. You can do it a couple different ways. It's all about balancing both teams. You want to have the good balance between the starters and the bench. You want to have good role players and guys that do certain things. In some ways, you don't start your best 5 players. This is one of the dumbest things Nick's done. In some ways, you want to start maybe your 3 best players with 2 role players that do really good things. And then you have your 4th and 5th best player off the bench. And you have like the role players, like guys like Poeltl in some ways a role player. And then maybe you have like a Boucher off on the starting lineup as like a rebounder, energy guy for the team off the start. That's how you could do it. The Bulls, when they won all the championships in the 90s, they had role players in their starting lineup, guys that were not like their best players overall. They started fucking Will Perdue for a while, for Pete's sake. That's what I'm saying. That in some ways, the premium having the starters be the absolute best players on the team is absolutely the reason why our bench sucks, and that we need to divide them up. And it's an easy thing to do. The plan I'm saying today is that it would really make it work, it would fix it. Wayne saying, Lux, those views, love those views, Callie. The team has to be focused on 80% free throw shooting. And if Nick Nurse stays, Gleason has to go. I can't have both. Ooh. Man, I don't know. We're going to have to see how this goes. I mean, there's going to be shuffling around on his staff, even if he stays. Watch. We're going to lose Adrian Griffin this summer. I know for a fact that Adrian Griffin is going to be taken and put on another staff as a head coach. Watch. Seriously, it's probably going to be Detroit. I'm going to bet you right now. I'm going to say it right now. You're going to remember that Lex said this. Adrian Griffin is going to be coaching the Detroit Pistons next season. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. I'm okay with letting Gleason go. I don't see the value in him as much as I want. If his departments are the offense and late game situations, well, he failed this year really badly. And I don't know. We'll have to see. But once again, whatever Masai does, I'm going to support, and we'll go forward with that. G saying, if we had a Dylan Brooks, do you think some of our fans would try and tame him? Domesticate him? I don't know. The fans, well, how are they going to do that? Like, it's not like we can change the players. Like, what, shaming them publicly? They don't give a shit what we're saying. And if they do, they need to get off social media. They just really do. That's funny, though. That's kind of a funny quote. MSJ saying, I think the players must know what the issue is, and we are just waiting for Masai to correct whatever it is. That said, they just aren't that good anyway. Yeah, they know what the issue is. I know what the issue is now, too. It's all clear. We found out yesterday in the interviews. We know what the issue is. It's the system. It's not even the coach. It's not even necessarily Nick. It's not any interpersonal problems. It's the system. The system that we have for our team didn't work. Our system just is like half-assed. The system is not totally filled in. It's kind of just like it's a skeleton of a framework that doesn't have any kind of like in between. It's just basically go do this, guys. But there's no meat to it. And that's part of it. It really is the system and the rotations. Those are the worst parts of our team and why we had failed this year. And that's why either the coach has got to go or the coach has got to do a reboot. He's got to shut his system down, close all of the system from last year, and rebuild his new system. And, that's it right there. We are very good. The talent is very good. We're going to be very good. It's just we got to get it to click. It's the kind of thing where it was frustrating. Poeltl said this in his interview. He said he could tell that they're very close, that they're very, very close to getting through and getting to the other side and being very much a very winning team. It's just that there's just not there yet. But in some ways, that makes me think they need to go down the road a little bit further, and then they will be there then. There's no denying this team is ultra talented, and we have a lot of good players. It was reiterated by all of them that they feel like they have a very good group and collection of guys that they play together with. So this is not the issue. It's not that they don't think they're good enough. They know they're good enough. It's just they got to get better results from being good enough. And in some ways, that's how the coach uses them is the problem. Wayne saying OG is loved. However, he's got to get out of anger management therapy. We need him to cut ties between friendships in the league who play against us. Talk during the summer. Otherwise, go play with DeMar. Now, I don't agree with this either. Wayne, you and I have been lining up a lot recently, but not as much today. But that's okay. Uh, he is very much loved. In fact, it was funny. Somebody said that the interview yesterday is going to be the last time we see him until September. And they're probably right. We may not see OG again for like a few months. Maybe we'll see him at Rico Hines a little bit, but we probably will not see OG's face until like preseason or something like that, or training camp. I don't even know. I don't think he's in anger management classes. We got to understand OG is a very interesting personality and a demeanor and the way he carries himself and he speaks. And that is not anger management. I think this is part of the problem with the Jake Fisher rumors about him is they misread him. They think that he's unhappy, but that's just how he is. He's monotone and he talks very like Eeyore. He's kind of like a glum, kind of like just matter of fact dude, but he smiles a lot. And he said he loves Toronto. He loves his teammates and he loves being on this team. So it's all debunked what Jake Fisher thinks. And if you think he has anger management problems, that's crazy. No, he doesn't. He's just an oddball. He's a weird one. And he has a weird delivery. And he's really hard to read because I just like talk like this. And, in some ways he's very much like Kawhi. And that's just how it is. You want him to cut ties with Jaylen Brown. I know that's specifically who you're probably talking about. He is best friends with Jaylen Brown, and I have no problem with that. In fact, I love that he's best friends with Jaylen Brown because that may help us get Jaylen Brown. So I have no problem with OG being friends. Listen, I'm not worried about him like Vince Carter, where he's like all NBA Friends League, where he's like, I want to go be friends with Dwayne Wade. I want to go be friends with Paul Pierce. I'm going to be friends with all of my enemies that I should be trying to kill on the court. No, that's not how OG is. In fact, I trust OG that he does not have friends all around the league because of the way he plays defense and shuts everybody down. So I can't agree with this, Wayne. I'm not worried about OG's friendships across the league. In fact, they're more likely to help us than hurt us. You think that when he lines up against Jaylen Brown, that he gives him easy time? No, he doesn't. In fact, he may come at Jaylen Brown harder than anybody else in the entire league just because of the competitiveness between their friendship. That could very well be that most of their friendship is based on the rivalry of them playing each other in their young careers. That, in some ways, Jaylen Brown may very much respect OG and vice versa because OG is one of the few people that can actually stop him and make him have a really hard time. So I'm going to disagree. If anything, he's getting up harder against his friends in the league, and he's not giving them an easier time. Trust me, OG. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Talk during the summer. Otherwise, go play with DeMar. I know. Listen, he's got to be friends with DeMar. They all have to be. He was their vet. He was important to them when they were young and as rookies, and he was a leader. They're friends. There's nothing wrong with former Raptors being friends with current Raptors. This is going to happen, and I'd much rather see that bond of friendship in that kind of way than a bond of friendship with a Celtic. So, yeah, DeMar being friends with all the Raptors, no problem with that. Kyle Lowry being friends with all the Raptors, no problem with that. What's the problem here? Even Goran being friends with Scottie, I have no problem with that. What are you going to control whether these guys can be friends or not? Goran's an idiot. We don't like him, but obviously he bonded with Scottie, and to a degree, they're friends. And we, let people be friends. Mike's saying that's why I want Wade to react. Usually the team disproves the rumors, so I never put Wade into things. The microscope we use to pick apart things is focused too hard at times. The logic is the same. Listen, I know maybe I am guilty of this. In fact, I want to, in some ways, apologize to you and a couple other people who are standing up for Nick in the last couple of weeks that I've been coming after him. In some ways, you were telling me it's like I don't totally buy this with Nick. And in some ways, you're very much right, Mike. I have to give you a lot of credit for standing with Nick in some ways, because if you watched the Nick Nurse interview yesterday, you're going to very much see a lot of things you were trying to tell me when I was going after him in the last 2 weeks. And I have to admit, y'all were right to a degree. It's just that he fumbled the ball on how he handled the rumors coming from Doug Smith, that he could have done it way more effectively. And the timing of it really ruined the end of our season. There's no denying this. But some of the things that you were saying about where his heart is and what he really wants, you were right, Mike. And you need to watch that interview right now after you're done with watching me, because you're going to need to see, and you will be able to do, and you could even talk about me and how I was wrong in your piece. I don't care. You can say, well, Raptors Streak thought that Nick was this and this and this, but I told him it wasn't like this. I have no problem with you coming correcting me on your stuff. I'm not above reproach. And I have to give a credit to you and to some of the other Nick Nurse people that were telling me, no, Nick's going to be our coach next year. I forget who the other people were. There was a particular person in this chat. I don't remember exactly who it was. That was very much telling me Nick is still going to be our coach. And I have to allow for that possibly being true and you guys being right. And so I apologize to you, Mike, for being so anti Nick Nurse in the last 2 weeks. It could very well be that he is still our coach next year. G saying, I like Scottie as a starter, but would also like to see him and Delano running the offense off the bench with Boucher and Precious. That lineup would be interesting to me. All right, you just gave me another idea, G. And this is why what we do on this channel is so amazing and powerful. You just gave me an idea of alternating starting lineups. Well, very much like the Boston Celtics have done a weird thing with Tatum and Brown this season, where they will bench one of them on back-to-backs. They'll play Tatum one night and they'll play Brown the other night. And this was kind of how they load managed them. And really, in some ways, they let them be number ones and run the team separately. Well, what if we did this? Like, I know people have been upset about having different starting lineups, 28 different starting lineups this season, and then no continuity, the kind of things we can get from having the lineup change so much because of injuries. Well, what if we had two totally separate, different starting lineups? And on any given night, we may start starting lineup A and starting lineup B. And it's not totally like one's better than the other. It could be very equal. There could be nights where Fred's starting lineup starts the game and Scottie's comes off the bench. And there could be nights that Scottie's starting lineup starts the game and Fred's starting lineup comes off the bench. Think about that. And doing it in the way kind of like how they balance Tatum and Brown with each other on the Boston team as individuals, but you do it with lineups. And if specific players are missing the game, that could be part of why you start the other lineup or not. It could be that you have very strong 5-man units. And it could be that Fred is the starting one, quote unquote, because he's very valuable with Poeltl. The more he's with Poeltl, the best. In some ways, he may need to be in the lineup with Poeltl and Siakam because of all the built up stuff. It could be that the lineup is actually Fred, OG, Poeltl, Siakam, and Gary. Let's just say. And then, like you said, there's a lineup of Scottie with Precious, Boucher, Trent Jr. or somebody, it's who you really figure out which you balance both lineups to have very good talent on both lineups. And you switch which ones get to start each game. Now, say Precious is hurt for a game, Scottie's team doesn't start that game, and they start the old vet team with Fred and Pascal and Poeltl. Say that Fred can't play that night or Pascal's out, then you start Scottie's younger starting lineup with people. But in some ways, I think that the team should be balanced with vet on both of them. Like one team shouldn't be super, super young. And part of the reason why I like Fred being the bench mob guy is because it really is an underdog mentality that he really works and thrives the most from. Like if you think about it, his whole career has been this, proving people wrong and coming up from getting from somewhere. In some ways, give him the challenge of coming off the bench for the year, and he'll play so well the whole entire year that everybody will say, damn, Fred should have been starting this whole year. I mean, that's kind of how he did it before when he was on the bench mob. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes Fred needs to play with a chip on his shoulder with the carrot in front of him and say, like, I need to be even better or prove that I shouldn't be this person. And you do that the way that I just talked about, boom. It's a very interesting idea. G saying, I like the Scottie as a starter, but would also like to see him in Delano running the offense off the bench with Boucher and Precious. That's what I'm saying. You have the young lineup, and maybe it's the kind of thing like, all right, we play the Charlotte Hornets and LaMelo Ball. You play our young lineup against them, and we have our old vets as the bench mob backups. And they literally are the old school bench mob with Jakob, Pascal, and Fred. I think there's so much fruit to this idea. And honestly, if we see any of this kind of shit happen next season, you'll know that maybe I had some part in like putting something in the seeds in their head. I don't know if they do anything like this. I think that this is a brilliant idea. And that in some ways it would really help use all of our depth right down to like 10 or 12 guys on the roster in a more effective way where we're getting more good stuff out of bench guys. So David's saying, yeah, that's the dream. Gee, seems like Nick Nurse doesn't like Precious and Boucher out there at the same time for some reason. That's not true either, David. He was using them as a tag team this year. And they were DX and they were Shawn Michaels and Triple H. And they were all about coming in together. He put them out there together all the time. And they are out there together all the time often too. It's not that they don't. He likes that combination. He sees it and it works. And that would be a really good combination to keep in one of these two teams I'm talking about. Let's see. Infamous is saying, morning freaks. I would like Fred to stay, but unfortunately, I think the environment has become too toxic and he needs to go. That's not true. Once again, I'm debunking today, guys. I'm debunking what y'all are saying because I got the truth yesterday. The team is not toxic. There's not issues on this team. The fan nation is toxic. We have a lot of toxic shit and noise around our team, and that's part of the distraction, the problem. If anything, maybe the players learned this year they need to batten down the hatches social media wise and really cut the white noise around them out as much as possible. And they did answer this question yesterday. They were like, did the noise bug you guys this season? And he said, yeah, we kind of heard it. But for the most part, Fred said nobody really kind of showed that it was really getting to them or affecting them. And this is really important in today's day and age with the betting and everything going on. These players really need to like limit and control their social media in smart ways. Have very small circles of people that you interact with that you trust and understand. And don't go searching for your name. Don't go out there and looking at all the dumb bullshit noise. And that's the thing. There's not toxicness in the team. The toxicness is in the noise around the team. The toxicness is with the reporters. It's all around the team. But in the team, they all came out and said there's not problems with any of us. And part of the reason why they don't look connected is because Nick Nurse is using a rough draft and not a fully fleshed out plan for how he does things. That is why they've had problems on the court. The coach is not filled in the blanks. And that is what needs to happen next season. So, yeah, Fred's not toxic. Go watch his interview yesterday, Infamous, and you'll see just how not toxic he is. Hey, he hit a home run. 10 out of 10 on Fred's interview yesterday. 10 out of 10. Let's see. Nameless is saying, makes sense, though. If he allows players to freelance, he relinquished his ability to dictate the game. Exactly. Exactly. In some ways, that's why Nick gets so upset when they mess up. Well, why are you getting upset? You told him to just go out there and do things, and you didn't really control it yourself. It's totally Nick being kind of lazy as a coach. It really is. In some ways, it's him being lazy as a coach. G saying, David, which is odd because they feed off each other's energy. That's a lengthy, quick, athletic, fun lineup. Yeah, I love that lineup too. And in fact, that may be kind of a positionless thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, have a duality to it. And in some ways, having that flip of a starting lineup, and it will be really interesting if they really know what they're doing. And you don't even have to call them Team A or Team B or Team One or Team Two. You could have a really different, distinctive quality for each of those squads and call them maybe Team Young and Team Old, Team Vet and Team Young, or something like that. Team Young and Team Old. Not old, but Team Vet. We call them Team Vet. And that's what I'm saying. But I'd like to really mix and match the experience in both of the teams. In some ways, that is better to have balance as far as you don't want to have a totally green team with Scottie out there. They're all the youngsters, and there's more likely to make rookie mistakes. You do need somebody steady in that lineup. Maybe OG. Maybe OG's on their team. Maybe they put OG and Chris on that team just to have a little bit more steadiness. Maybe it's Scottie and OG in the backcourt with Precious and Chris and Koloko. And that's the backup young team. And then you have Freddie, Gary, Precious, and Pascal and Jakob in the other lineup. I don't know. You can figure out. You suss it out. In some ways, you have so much knowledge about who works well together, Nick. That's how you figure out who's on which team one or team two or team vet or team young or team Scottie or team Fred. And it's not that they want to keep Fred and Scottie separated. They can play together, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it could be that they're not even the delineation. It could be a different way you delineate. There's another point guard. Maybe Jeff Doughton has the bench mob or something like that. I don't know. I just think that you guys need to try and recapture the bench mob phenomena. And why not try and recapture it with the leader of the bench mob originally, Fred VanVleet, the guy who actually knows how to do it? It just makes sense. Infamous saying Nurse has lost the players. He has to go. No, that's not true either. Once again, you are going to get debunked because you didn't watch the interviews yesterday. All the players said they love playing for Nick, and he has not lost them. They asked Nick straight up, do you feel like the players are not listening to you anymore? He said, no, they're listening to me. And in fact, he kind of was insulted that the reporter even asked that question and thought that maybe they hadn't been following him anymore. So this has been debunked. I thought that he had lost the players, but in some ways what happened was there was a ripple effect because of Nick's dumbass press conference in Philly. The players heard the noise and maybe came back around, and then they maybe were kind of like, well, why am I trying so hard? And then we saw a poor effort in Boston. And in some ways, yeah, they checked out because it was unsure about whether their coach was really actually committed to being the coach of their team or not. But I don't think they actually ever like tuned him out or stopped listening to him. That's not the issue. They very much respect him and love him. They said that, all of them yesterday. It's not the problem. That's not the problem. The toxicness is really outside the team, and it's a bunch of noise that makes you think that they're toxic. They just went through the motions and played the games, and they had the outcomes that they had. Everybody wants to read into it and make it more dramatic than it is. It's just that it didn't work. The system didn't work this year. It's not that people were fighting. It's not that people didn't get along. It's not that anybody was like mad at each other or didn't like each other. It's that Nick Nurse's system didn't work. That is the whole failure for this year. And that's the toxicness is in the fan nation and in the press and in all the bullshit and in saying things like Nick Nurse has lost the players. That's toxic. That is not true. The players all very much reconfirmed that they are bought in and listening to Nick, and they support him as a coach, and that Fred wants him to be the coach next season. He's straight up said that yesterday. MSJ saying, no way. Anything the Dark Triad is listened to by any serious basketball person, much less a Raptors player, it's easy to point out people's faults, and that is all he does. Team just needs to shoot better. Yes. Yes. Now, can they get better opportunities to make better shots? Maybe they just had an off year. There's all kinds of different reasons why they didn't shoot well this year. But they do need to shoot better. And either we get better personnel that shoots better, or we get some of the guys that are at the bench, like Wieskamp, played more and get them shooting better. Whatever way we can get better shooting next year, yes, for sure. For sure. David's saying, yeah, I'm always disappointed when one comes out and the other doesn't. Wait, let me see where it jumped. Hang on. Yeah, hang on. Okay, there's a lot here. I'm always disappointed when one comes out and the other doesn't. He doesn't seem to think much of anyone except the top 7. Yeah, I don't like that. And that's why the thing I'm proposing today seems like it would make sense. That you're going to give guys more opportunity if you have 2 different starting lineups that you can start and at any given night. Who knows? Chris Boucher may get to start some games just because of reward, because of this kind of system and how they do things. And it could be very equal, and everybody will feel like they're more important, and we get more out of everyone, and we get a bench production. That's the whole biggest thing. We're trying to fix the bench production. We're trying to fix more organization. We're trying to fix role definition. These are the ways we do it. You have 2 different 5-man lineups that have very specific roles in that lineup and what they do as a unit. And you can mix and match a little bit. It's not like they have to be just strictly those guys together, but they're your bread and butter kind of pairings that really, really have good synergy together. But you can still, like, they overlap, and maybe that you bring part of the second team in with the first team and they're melded a little bit together in that way. But in some ways, you want to have the competitiveness of the 2 squads against each other in practice, because that's what Fred was talking about. When we were the bench mob, we would play against the starters, Kyle and DeMar, and we'd really get up to try and beat their ass. And often we did in practice. And in some ways, that's what we need. We need internal competition that will drive everybody's level of play up. And that's not happening on this team. In some ways, the guys in the starting lineup this year knew that they had it and they just got it and they don't have to work for it anymore. Well, have some people nipping at their heels saying, you don't play well enough. Well, these bench guys will come in and take over the game and play instead. This is how you can get way more out of the talent that we have on this team, Nick, or whatever coach is going to be coaching next year, Earl, whoever it is. Wayne's saying, I'm not buying nothing Nick is saying. I saw his work product and it wasn't good at crucial times. I agree. What Masides decide is good with me as well. Agreement is never going to be 100%. All right, I'm agreeing with Wayne on this one. We were a little off on a couple of them before, but I'm with him on this. I'm not totally buying what Nick's saying yesterday either. I feel like he's backtracking because he was coy. He's being a little coy about the rumors. He didn't kill them right away. In some ways that benefited him, but it didn't. And now he's kind of like in some ways backtracking that he wants to come back and still be our coach, even though he made it out there like it seems like he wants to go to Houston. So in some ways, I'm not totally buying Nick, and I don't totally trust him. And it's true. This statement is exactly right. Wayne's saying his work product, and it wasn't good at crucial times. This is exactly right. And this is what they'll evaluate this year, this summer. And what I could see Masai doing is he's going to look at his outcome as coach and say, Nick, you failed here, you failed here, you failed here. And if you're going to be the coach of this team, you can't fail at these things. And I'm sorry, we evaluated how you did this year, and it wasn't good enough. We're going to go in another direction. That could very well be the conversation that Masai and Nick have in the near future. That it's like, we saw what you did out there, and it was shitty, and weren't happy with it. You're fired. It could be that, because honestly, his work product, as you put it, was not good on the court this year. And it specifically was the big reason why we lost a lot. Mike's saying there are coaches that have a way about them. It's about trust and understanding between a coach and a player. And if you trust the player, he gives them chances because he knows what they offer and believes. Now, on the flip side, Scottie in his interview talked about the freedom that Nick Nurse gives them, and why he loves Nick Nurse is because he lets them do whatever they want. And in some ways, that is attractive to players like Scottie and Precious. They're young and trying to figure out who they are and become better players. But in some ways, these guys need structure also. And that's what we're calling out for at this point. Fred wants structure. I want structure. I'm sure Masai wants structure at this point. And that's what's going to matter, is that kind of stuff. Now, listen, they do trust and understand Nick. I mean, listen, they won a championship with him, some of those guys. The Pascal's pretty much had Nick like as one of his main coaches for the longest time. There is a lot of familiarity and a lot of connection with a lot of the Raptors with him. And even Scottie loves and endorses Nick also. So there's not a problem with the players and Nick Nurse. That is not the issue either. That was debunked yesterday. I thought that may have been part of the problem, that they tuned him out, but that's not true. That's not true. And I apologize for putting that out there more on my channel. This is the thing. This is like science. I find out more facts. I adjust the facts. I don't just go blindly believe in what I want to believe and just fight for that. And that may be what the problem is with Panser. The problem with me is I just want this team to win, and I will try and get to the closest way that we can, and I'll put out ideas. In some ways, I'm not always right, but I'm willing to walk stuff back and change my opinion on things as new evidence comes out and new truth. That is how a scientist is. They don't just believe this is for real forever. Things can change when new evidence comes out. And that's what's happening with me right now. I'm getting new evidence and I'm finding out new things. Let's see. And I'm glad Wayne's with me. We're just going to go with Masai, and whatever he decides, we will 100% support and go forward. Now, later on down the road, if some of these decisions are really bad and we are really a dumpster fire, then maybe Masai will be in trouble then, but not for a long time. This guy's done too much good things for the Raptors for too long that I won't be asking for Masai to leave. No, I won't. Mike's saying there are coaches that have wait, I read that one already. Carlos here saying the team has to be all in free throws this offseason. Yeah, they need to be all in a couple different ways. In some ways, like being a professional means really committing. And I think that's one of the lessons Scott learned about this season, that if he wants to be the best absolute player he can be on the court, his offseason really needs to matter. And in some ways, being on Twitch with us so much last season, even though people came in and said, you should be working out, you should be in. Well, maybe some of them were right. And maybe Scottie realizes this, that maybe he won't spend so many hours playing video games like he did last summer. And he'll spend more of those hours being the gym rat that he needs to be to elevate his defensive prowess on the court with his conditioning. That is specifically what he said. He said he had trouble doing the Mr. 94 feet stuff and kept picking people up full court this season. And that it was an alarm bell to him that he needs to up his conditioning game in the offseason. So this is some good stuff. They're going to have to be all in on a lot of things. And some of it's the details and the fundamentals of winning basketball. They got to get back to it. David saying, oh, well, if you want to talk about Fred off the bench, I'm a massive fan of that idea. I don't think Fred is bad. To the contrary, but we need him in a role that suits him. Yeah. And in some ways, this really does suit him. You know, he has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to have challenges. He maybe wants to prove that he shouldn't be on the bench squad. And in some ways, that really irritates him. He may go above and beyond. That's what you got to look at. What motivates your players to get better and be better? Some ways, Nick has made it lazy for his players because it's all given to them. They don't have to earn it. OG said something weird in his press conference. He said, I don't believe that the starters should be taken out just because they're missing shots. That's not fair. In some ways, I guess I kind of agree with him, but I don't. Because if you're missing shots, there may be a guy on the bench that will make the shots. So in some ways, when OG said that in his interview, that made me feel like, okay, they have so much security that they know that they don't have to play as hard as they want or hard as they can because they're going to get to play regardless, no matter what. That they're not in danger of losing their minutes in any kind of way because Nick has just granted them to them. I don't think that's a good way to do things. I don't think you get the best out of your best talented starters when you have it already given to them, that is just granted. They should have to earn things still constantly and to a degree. It's not that you want to jerk them around too much, but you need to let them know that if they play at a higher and higher level, they will be rewards for it. And if they all just have it all granted to them, why the fuck would they strive to be even better? Because it's just easy and cushy and lazy. And that's why I'm saying we need a bench mob to nip at their heels and make them a little bit kind of worried about them coming and taking their roles. And that would really fix it. I love that David likes my idea. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm coming together trying to make it all work for everybody. Make it work for people that aren't that thrilled with Fred. Make it work for Fred himself. Make it work better for the team and the results. Make it work better for everybody on the team. All 17 now will be 18 starting next season on the team. Yeah. G-San, I told you about that pay place when Duke was here. Go check it out. You will love the vibe and food. That's the place that Gary name dropped. They asked him what his favorite restaurant in Toronto was, and he said it was a Thai food restaurant named Pay Place that he really likes. Gary does really love being in Toronto. You can tell he loves the cosmopolitan internationalness of the city. And it was weird. At one point, they were talking to him about Bo Cruz. They talked about Juancho. I don't know why they brought up Juancho specifically with Gary at that moment, but he told a story about being in Miami Beach and at a restaurant, and people were driving by in their cars, and they like screeched and stopped and wanting to get their picture taken with Bo Cruz, a movie star. And Gary was talking about how Juancho really is like a real movie star because he saw it in person when he's around him. That was pretty fun. It was kind of cool that, Gary was very matter of fact. I don't talk to him anymore, but I really did enjoy my time with him as a teammate on the team with him this season. So that was kind of a fun little side story there about Juancho. Let's see. David saying pie is so good. Best Thai in town. All right. There's a lot of ringing endorsements for that place. I may have to go find it. Lion Hunter saying Scottie isn't ready for starting point guard. Forcing this is a mistake, in my opinion. Well, let me see this. Put him on training wheels. Seriously, put him on training wheels. And in some ways, if he's out there with Pascal, it's safe because Siakam can be that secondary ball handler out there. Even OG, if he's out there with them too. I'm just saying that in some ways we want to try him with the training wheels on, like with in some ways you have safety nets for him. Like if things are really going wrong, as far as like he's turning the ball over way too much, he's not making the right decisions. Maybe his energy's not right to start the game, like sometimes happens with him. You have the backup plan. That's what I'm saying. You want to have plan A, plan B, plan C, and stuff like that. And I feel like in some ways Nick Nurse has only been plan A this whole year. It's just the starters. The starters is plan A, plan A. That's it. Well, what's plan B? We don't have a plan B. Well, we're fucked. That's what I'm saying. I want to diversify our plans to try different things. We won't force it. Like, listen, it's the kind of thing where you really got to pay attention to it. And if Scottie is struggling, if it's over his head and he cannot do it that night, well, then you give him the hook. And you do it in a way where it doesn't hurt his confidence. You do it in a way where maybe you put Fred in and you leave Scottie out there. It's not like you take him out and you just let Fred start running the team at that point. So there's ways to do this where he's kind of like he's on a bike with training wheels. And then you can, at some point, you'll probably hopefully be able to take those training wheels off and let him just go and he'll be fine. But you got to give him these opportunities and try it. And maybe like I wanted him to come off the bench in his first year as a rookie. I felt like he would be such a good glue guy for our bench unit, but it never happened. But in some ways, just like OG started his first season as a rookie, he came off the bench his second year. And I don't want to slight Scottie in any of his accomplishments or what he's trying to do with his goals. But in some ways, that may be a really good challenge for him if he did come off the bench. So it could be the opposite. It could be Fred's squad as the starters and Scottie is in the bench and he's running the second team, the bench mob. But he'd have to have that mentality like Fred did. In some ways, Fred will have the right bench mob captain mentality that Scottie won't. And that's why I kind of like the way that I said it. But in some ways, you could do it either way. You could have Scottie be the leader of the bench team instead. Let's see. MSJ is saying the idea of winning it all is totally unrealistic with this team. And I mean to say that watching basketball is what fans should do, not set up or chip or bust scenario. Maybe a second round team is real. Yeah. Well, it's stair steps. We got to take each step of building towards being that again. Is for sure. Championship or bust mentality is so toxic and wrong around the league in every fan nation. I don't care. They all deal with it. It's like really dumb. There's all the toxicity really has to do with social media, the fans, the Raptors nation, and the press. It really is all that stuff. It doesn't even really have to do with our team. It's crazy. The noise clouded the situation and made more, and the losing and not successfulness of the year made it seem like there were very deep problems with their team, but there really aren't. There really aren't. And it's the kind of thing where if you have a system change with this personnel, we could see very dramatic success very quickly. And that's what I'm saying, MSJ. It may seem like it's unrealistic to win it all with this team, but it may not be because we just make sound, really smart decisions and they absolutely work and they get us going in a really good chemistry way. That's what I'm looking at, that this could happen. And that's why Masai and Bobby are still doubling down on this core and they're not shipping guys out because they believe they just got to make it click. And then when they figure out that click, everything's going to be going real good. And it will be this weird thing where we'll see it as fans and we'll be like, holy shit, they figured it out. And I'm so glad we went through all the bullshit and got to this point to get to this point. Because if we gave up on it in the middle of it, we wouldn't have gotten to this point. Seriously, that's going to happen with us. That if they don't give up on this core and they come back next year with a new system and it works really well, everybody's going to be so relieved and so happy that we didn't fucking give up and tear it down like everybody thought we should. And I really think that's going to be a prediction I'm making right now that is fully going to come true. Seriously, y'all remember on April the 14th when I said this and how this happens. G saying they need Sergio back if possible. He's a winner. Sergio's great. In some ways, he's a personality. In some ways, he may be better than Trevor Gleason. You're exactly right. But I don't know. Once again, I don't like going back in the past unless it makes sense. And I think Sergio doesn't want to be in the NBA anymore. I think he was only around the NBA just because of Nick. And he just felt like being around Mark and different people around our team. And then in some ways, he's much better in the international world and doing what he does in the coaching places that he does. And being in the NBA was just something to add to his resume. I mean, he worked really well. Why would he want to come back to the NBA? He has that on his resume, NBA champion, assistant coach. And that's prestigious in everywhere else where he is like a king somewhere else, in Spain, in Italy, in different places that he coaches already. So, yeah, I don't think Sergio's coming back to the NBA ever because he's done he's accomplished there already. He doesn't need to be here. David's saying, yeah, it was so sad when he went back overseas. Awesome coach. Well, his duties over there increased. And in some ways, his career, Mike did a really deep dive on Sergio Scarleone. He knows a lot about him. That, there's stuff that he's doing over there with national teams and then teams that he runs in the Italian league and the Spanish league and stuff is very important. So he's very busy. I think he coaches like 3 teams. So, that's where he needs to be. That's his home. That's where his family is. Being in North America is away, foreign. And maybe that was fun for that part of his resume, but he's not coming back, guys. Just let him go. Carlos said, well said, Lex. Take this loss on the chin and shake it off. You can't win all the time. Team is going through bad times, but what's the point in simmering in negativity? Well, that's what I'm saying. One bad thing leads to another and it mushrooms. And that's part of the problem with today's social media climate is that you can make dumpster fires that are mirage that don't even exist around your team. And it's not even actually the reality. It's just the noise around it. And thank God the players are immune to it. And maybe like it doesn't influence them. Maybe it does in some ways, but it's very toxic. And in this new age, these guys need to be quick and moving away from social media or making changes in their lives so that these kind of forces, toxic forces out there, are not influencing how they feel about being on the team, how they feel about their role, how they feel about their coach, how they feel about, anything that's going on with whatever they fucking want to say online. I mean, listen, ball sack sports is one of the worst fucking things in the world. Any kind of parody satire site that's on social media right now, fuck you. Because you got to understand, there's people that aren't very smart out there in this world. They have low IQs and they don't know what's real and what's not. What did they do? They put out a fucking fake thing yesterday, a quote by Nick Nurse saying that it was Bush League and they needed to kick that little brat out of the arena. They misquoted Nick Nurse and put it on their site. Well, their logos and things make you think that it could be a real, like, normal sports site. And in fact, they mix real news with their parody satire news on their site. Fuck you, ball sack sports, because you make things more confusing and fucked up. You make this meme that shows Nick Nurse saying that was Bush League stuff. They should have kicked that little brat out. Well, somebody on Toronto radio yesterday saw that online and thought that was a real quote from Nick, and they put it on blast on the radio here in Toronto. Seriously, it was a ball sack sports parody thing, but it's written like it could be real. A lot of people don't understand how to look at things objectively, and they'll take your word for it. That's why y'all are so destructive. You're so evil, and fuck you for making it. I don't care if you think that's a brand of humor. I don't think if you think you're fucking Mad Magazine of sports at this point, you're not. You're fucking like Fox News. You're putting out fake bullshit and duping dumb people into thinking what you're saying is true. And you need to quit that shit out. In fact, I want them to outlaw ball sack sports and every single kind of satire site that's involved with sports in any way, because they are making things confusing and they're putting out bullshit to the point where people that are smart in the media in Toronto are putting their fake ass shit on blast on the radio. Can you see where there's a problem with misinformation? Can you see where there's a problem with toxic media and satire sites making bullshit up that could be plausible? And they're even mixing real stories on their sites with the bullshit stories. It's so fucked up. It is so fucked up. Mike's saying at the start of things, Messiah adopted a core of Lowry, DeRozan, and JV, turned that into a chip. He's described the process as getting to a certain point where you get those pieces that fit, aka Kawhi and Gasol. Yeah, I want to see his new process. I mean, we're seeing it. It's in the middle of it. And I think actually, honestly, there's not, we'll see what kind of stuff he does. This summer could be a summer of opportunity. Who knows? Some big names could be available, and Masai Ujiri may be ready to pull some crazy major triggers, just like in the summer of 2018. So we'll have to see and trust in Masai. Yeah, David's saying, MSJ, are you a Joel Embiid fan? MSJ saying, kid doesn't have mental health issues. She has our number and won the game for them. Screaming at a basketball game is normal. If anything, this weird reaction by some Raps fans tells the story. Soft. Well, what's soft and what isn't? I mean, is my reaction soft because I'm like, let her do it. And we need the revenge. Let's clear the debt with DeMar DeRozan and his family. Let's do it here. I mean, or is it like people wanting to kill her? There's some people that want to be very violent and attack a 10-year-old daughter of DeMar DeRozan at this point. That's crazy. That's not soft. That seems like over the other way. If anybody has mental health problems, maybe it's some of the people that are dealing with what she did in certain ways. I think that's right. The reaction of some of the people show the mental health of the Raptors nation and how they're talking about DR DeRozan. So, yeah, it's interesting. I like your take here, MSJ. I'm with you. She doesn't have mental health issues. She was very smart and calculated, and she did it right. And some of the people that are talking about her may have mental issues. How about that? Jody White saying to Race Mode Daily, can handle 20,000 fans yelling. It was the tone of her scream, as annoying as fingers down the chalkboard. Yeah, annoying on TV would have been even worse in the arena. Somebody had a really funny picture on Twitter of her and the cameraman who was sitting right in front of her and how his face looked all red and irritated. And she was literally yelling in his ear that whole time, like right in front of her. And like, poor guy, they were like telling poor cameraman guy having to deal with that noise right in her ear because she was literally right behind him. Oh my gosh. I mean, listen, it was because it's so quiet. We gone over this, that she could be so loud. And you're exactly right, Jody. Her timing was sublime. She really, really did a good job. And Scott admitted it yesterday that they could hear her and that it was affecting the free throws. Seriously, Raptors use this excuse. I'd much rather you say that DeRozan's daughter fucked up your free throws than you're just shitty free throw shooters. Use it as an excuse, please. Because it is. It's a real one. It's a real excuse. And don't act like it didn't have a factor in things. It did. Y'all know it did. Scottie admitted it. Thank God Scottie told the truth when he said that. Monique's saying, get ready for the nice run anytime soon. I expect to hear from Bobby and Masai, Christian and Jeff. Okay, yeah. Hopefully we'll hear from those guys today. We're not going to hear from Christian and Jeff. We'll hear from the front office today. It's usually they do all the players and the coach the first day, and we should have a Masai Ujiri or a Bobby Webster press conference today. Probably won't be both. It'll probably be one or the other one. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be Masai, and hopefully it will be Masai, and we'll see him probably in the next 2 hours. Leslie's saying, I don't want to be a villain here, but I found Pascal's interview the most disappointing. Pascal seemed casual, aloof, and not very passionate about the end of the season. In some ways, I agree with you, Leslie, and it is something I've knocked him for recently. But in some ways, he did show a little bit more like he does care. Like you can tell it's worn on him, and he's just sick of it. I hope that Siakam's at this point where he's like, you know what? I need to get to the next level. I'm close, and I could get to the next level because that's what he's always striving to do. He said it yesterday. He wants to do the impossible. Well, the impossible is Siakam. Can you make yourself into a player more like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan? Because that's the next logical progression for your Pokemon evolution. Is that you need to fucking change yourself into a like Mike, killer instinct that I'm going to kill you and make the game go my way. And I think you can do it. I think that you have the skills to do it. It's just that you may need to do more mental work this summer. You may need to do more focusing and what it means to have a killer instinct, to not be soft and to be like, I want to murder the other team at all costs. This is what you've got to tap into. Mean Pascal that we saw the little glimmers of at the beginning of the season with Rico Hines talking about it. Go find him this summer. Go and really meditate on this and think about who you want to be with your psyche as far as what you care about on the court. Is some of the players, I mean, some of the fans like us are saying you seem casual. It seems like you don't care, Pascal. Well, make us really know that you care next year. And you can't do it by saying, "Oh, I do care." Just saying lip service. Show it on the court. Do it in your play and how you carry us to wins at the end of the game. And that'll be the thing I want to see, the change in him. David saying at MSJ, so that's a yes to the Embiid fan club. All right, I don't know if you're coming after him because people like Embiid. I like Embiid right now, David. So attack me. Come on. I like Embiid right now. Come on. Carlos saying at Leslie, that's what happens when you miss game tying free throws. Yeah, concentration. You really got to take this seriously. Would Michael Jordan miss those free throws, Pascal? Would Kobe miss those free throws? Instead of like, what would Jesus do? What would Michael do? What would Kobe do? You need to start asking yourself those questions this summer and start really thinking in that kind of way. If you could take a class in Mamba mentality this summer, I'd really like that, Siakam. If there's some sort of college course out there, a specialty course at UCLA or something, maybe it's Dr. Rico Hines is teaching that course. He's not a doctor. Sorry, I shouldn't say that because he's not. He's maybe Professor Rico Hines is teaching a course on Mamba mentality this summer. You need to go take that course and get into that. Seriously. Randolph saying, beloved Raptor Freaks, most informative gang. Blessings on everyone. All we can hope for this offseason is that our guys would prepare and get better and front office do amazing job. Oh, I love those blessings. And I agree. Randolph Phillips, thank you for coming and blessing us as always. Blessings back to the Phillips family and all the good things happening to you, Randolph, are my good friend. Yeah, I agree with all of this. This is when the offseason is when the work is put in to improve for next year. And this is one of the things Nick said yesterday that was very telling. He's like, these guys played their ass off and worked so hard in the offseason last year. And I feel bad because they did everything right and they worked so hard the whole season. They just didn't get the results that we wanted. And that's why I'm pissed at Nick, because he didn't allow them to, because he didn't set them up for it. Because the guys really did do everything right. They showed a commitment last offseason and they worked their asses off. And they really did develop on their own in good ways last summer. And during the season, they busted their ass and tried their damnedest off for most of the season. Sure, there were periods where they had lapses and it seemed like they gave up at times. But for the majority of the year, they were still putting a really good effort and trying their asses off. And Nick recognized that. He's proud of the team for working as hard as they did this year. They just wish they had gotten better results. And that's basically it. But yeah, this offseason, when all the work is done to prepare themselves for the next season and to get better. And that's why I like the recommitment by Scottie Barnes to come into this offseason with a conditioning on his mind and to improve his game. He's talking about working on skills. He's talking about working on his three-pointers. He's talking about working on all kinds of different things with his game, his decision-making. He talked a little bit about when he's in the low post and he wants to turn to make a shot, being ready to deal with the double teamer coming at him and not turning into him. If you notice near the end of the season, Scottie would try and do his moves down low, and they were sending double teams at him. And they knew his move, and he would turn, and they would strip the ball from him when he would turn because the guy was there and he didn't know he'd be there right then. This is the kind of stuff that he has to look at and analyze and be ready for next season, and train his brain to make that instant second kind of decision. This is the right one. Maybe he's spinning instead of this way, he's spinning the other way because the defender can't come from that side. They're going to come from that side. So there's this little tinkering. And like I said, watch the end of Fred's interview, and he gives you a laundry list of the things that Scottie is going to work on and improve this summer that he's working with him on as a mentor to him, much like Kyle was a mentor to him, Fred. So it's really interesting, the things they said yesterday. There's so much in there. Very informative interviews yesterday. Mike saying a core of Fred, Spicy, Poeltl are comparable to that core. Plus, they have the championship knowledge already. So not gonna lie, if Lowry, DeRozan, JV worked into a chip, we're in a better position with OG and SB now. Yeah. If we look at it as like a pattern of waves of kind of like building towards championships, in some ways where we are right now is a little bit better than 2016 or 2017. And that's kind of how you should look at it, Mike. This is a really good statement you made here. MSJ saying that David, he's amazing for all the ways he can score at his size. Not a huge fan of him, though. But that has to do with the Sixers losing to us and him crying, laugh out loud. I tend not to be a fan of any player. Well, let's do a little bit of a postseason awards watch. I'll go through each of the awards real quick, and we'll look and see who's leading what right now. Now, Joel Embiid has a great lead on the MVP race right now. He has 25 first place votes, according to the great spreadsheet that is tracking all this by Max Cross. It is very much Embiid's to win. He has 25, and Giannis is second with 7 first place votes. So 25-7, Embiid in the lead for MVP. The All NBA stuff. I have a theory on this, guys. Siakam has no votes for All NBA at this point, and I understand why. In some ways, Siakam made All NBA last season because he didn't make the All-Star team. And in some ways, they're doing that again this season, except the guy that's going to make All NBA this year that didn't make the All-Star team is Jimmy Butler. So they're doing a similar thing with Jimmy Butler that they did for Siakam last year. In some ways, they are like, you're not good enough to be All NBA and All-Star. So you got an All-Star this year, even though it was a replacement, which is kind of a shame. And even though your numbers are so good, Siakam, you're not going to make the All NBA team. And in fact, they're going to give guys like Lauri Markkanen and Jimmy Butler spots that they should have given to Pascal instead. And part of it is because they want to put a shine on Jimmy Butler for not getting All-Star. They got to give him an award just like they did Siakam last year. So there's a little bit of that going on with things because Siakam's already an All-Star. He's not getting as much consideration for All NBA. Let's just put it that way. And Jimmy Butler is going to get the Siakam award of making All NBA without being an All-Star like last year. Now, the next thing we're looking at, Defensive Player of the Year, still no OG on here at all. And it's really annoying that not even in any of the second or third place votes, we're seeing OG's name pop up yet. So he's not getting any consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I don't know how they're going to determine the teams. Hopefully, he'll have a chance with that. But one good news is that Evan Mobley has been overtaken. In the very early votes, Evan Mobley was dominating the Defensive Player of the Year votes, but now he isn't, thank God. Because if he won Defensive Player of the Year, I'd be like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Jaren Jackson is now leading the votes for Defensive Player of the Year with 14 first-place votes on Max Cross's Excel sheet. And now Brooke Lopez is actually in second with 7, and Evan is in third with 5. So thank God, a little bit more of like not putting Evan Mobley in Defensive Player of the Year. That's so stupid. Why would you do that? Jaren Jackson Jr. is a better candidate, but we all know OG Anunoby should be winning that. Most improved player is Lauri Markkanen right now so far. There's a couple of votes for SGA, but it's looking like it's Markkanen's to win. So Markkanen's having a fantastic year. It looks like he's going to get an All-NBA. He's going to get a most improved player, and he was an All-Star this year in his first year in Utah. A fantastic year for Lauri Markkanen. So he's looking like he's the most improved player. The Rookie of the Year is almost unanimous for Paolo Banchero. He's got 22 first place votes, but guess what? Somebody's all upset because they want it to be unanimous for Banchero, but it's not because all right, listen, this is crazy. The Salt Lake City Tribune, Andy Larson, is picking Walker Kessler as his vote for Rookie of the Year. And some people are up in arms that Paulo will not be a unanimous Rookie of the Year because of this. They're very mad at this writer for the Salt Lake City Tribune being a homer and voting for Walker Kessler, and that they really, really thought that Paulo should be a unanimous Rookie of the Year. So that's an interesting drama with that one. Sixth man of the year, it's Malcolm Brogdon. This is what I'm saying. Malcolm Brogdon went from starting for the Pacers to being a celebrated sixth man of the year probably for the Boston Celtics this year. And the strength of having Brogdon off the bench as your backup point guard, people have talked about the Raptors need a backup point guard. Well, what the fuck if it's Fred? What if it's Fred? Fred is the backup point guard again, and he just calms that very important role that needs us for better bench production and better quality play throughout the whole 48 minutes of the game. That is what Malcolm Brogdon is doing for the Celtics. And that's why I think Fred could do this role for us and still get prestige from it. You know, Malcolm Brogdon is going to win sixth man of the year, and there's no slouch in Fred. You could be a sixth man of the year if you really worked on it in this role, if we did this. Now, the final race is already called, and he's already won it, and he's unanimously the first place vote getter on every single vote so far. Mike Brown, Coach of the Year for the Sacramento Kings. And we cannot deny that that is the right pick for that award, that Mike Brown by far deserves the turnaround for the Sacramento Kings, getting them finally in the playoffs. He is the Coach of the Year. They've already announced it. So there's a little bit of the end of the year's awards, kind of looking at what they're doing with that kind of stuff right now. All right. Wow. I'm at 3 hours. All right. If you guys have any more comments, don't write anymore. I'm just going to finish up the comments that are here for the day, unless there's something in response that really needs to be said. Otherwise, let's see. David saying, I like it. Just a cynical Raptors fan. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, in some ways he deserves it. In some ways, I want him to just get it so people will stop talking about him being MVP. He could win MVP this year, Embiid, and never ever win it again because he's already won it. So in some ways, we kind of want that, and then we'll stop hearing about him being MVP all the time. Jody's saying SGA going against his cousin Nickel tonight. Although Nickel will only get about 15 minutes or so, had good last game against the Lakers off the bench. Yeah, he did. He really was one of their best things going for them in that game altogether. In some ways, Nickel for the Timberwolves. It'll be fun to see the cousins battle each other. We got a couple of little fun matchups: Lowry versus DeRozan, SGA versus Nickel. That's good stuff. That's good TV. I'm not gonna watch it, but I'll see all the highlights and I'll probably look at the box scores. But as per usual, I don't watch basketball once the Raptors are done, but I will keep up with what happens in the results, but I won't spend the time to actually watch the whole entire game. MSJ saying David, I coached for 30 years, so players to me are not something to be a fan of. The team is. Cynical? Nah. I think of the team over players. Team is not so good. I can only say what I see. See, that's the right attitude. I'm with MSJ, and I love to hear that he's a former coach and that he really knows his stuff, and that he's here with us. That's awesome. And I'm going to put more weight on MSJ's comments, knowing that he has 30 years coaching. Mike's saying it's not coasting. It's actually developing the player more. He wants to build the main ball handlers into coaches, like a no-huddle QB, read the defense and call play. It allows for a better result. Maybe eventually, maybe with a more learned veteran kind of mindset, but not with the young guys who don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, this would be funny. Like, if he did leave and he went to Houston and he coached the Rockets in this kind of style of game, this would be hilarious. They would be like really fucked up. They would be really fucked up. They would play like they're playing in an all-star game. Seriously. It wouldn't be like real basketball. It would be just these young, super athletic, talented youngsters that have no fundamentals doing crazy ass shit on the court. That's what I'm saying, Mike. The problem is young players are not fundamentally good. So you can't do this no huddle quarterback kind of shit with players like that are young like that, because they're not going to make the right decisions. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to be showy. They're going to be flashy. They're not going to make the high percentage right decisions, the safe decisions, because they want to be flashy and get highlights. And that's the biggest problem with this whole idea of letting them go on autopilot and figure it out for themselves. You can't do that with young players. You got to give them structure. And that's why Nick has failed this season. He needed structure for his young players on the Raptors this year. Mike's also saying Nick, if he's here, has to build a default package of plays and use the read and react sometimes. Switch that up on teams, run both within the same style. Building plays up could bring more stable R&R. Exactly. That's all I want. It's like he doesn't even have to have a very deep playbook. He's just got to find some bread and butter stuff that works more often than not and really practice it and really hone it and really make it something that where we can just beat the other team over the head with it and clobber them and absolutely kill them. That's the things that I miss about our team. We want to have a capable offense that can go get a basket at any time when they want to, and we don't have that. That's why we have these droughts of 5 minutes where nobody scores. Well, this is why we need plays, because set plays are the biggest antidote against scoring droughts. Because you have a set play that you know works 90% of the time, fucking go to that shit. You want to go and play the percentages, the high percentages, the fundamentals, and get the good stuff so that you have success. We don't have a path to success if they're just saying, go and figure it out. There's no path to success. Give them the path to success to walk down, and they will be successful. Monique saying, thanks for the shout out earlier in the stream, but fans, people often forget how tight knit I am with the team. These are one of the reasons I'm glad I was nominated and so much more. You mean as community champion? Of course, Monique. We understand that. Monique, I got to ask you real quick, and please answer down in the bottom after I ask you. Are you going to be on the stream tomorrow? I'd like to know if you're going to be here tomorrow. If you're going to be, normally you are here, but I don't want to assume anything because in some ways I really want you to be here for the stream tomorrow. If you could, if you don't mind, just let me know if you're free and you'll be able to be present for our stream tomorrow 9:30 a.m. to share the love club. Yes, I hope you can be here. Seriously, you specifically, Monique. I'd like to see if you can be here for the share the love club. If you get what I'm saying right here, Mike's saying. Players develop more over time. We need different players beside them. Early with a young developing team, roles are grown in and out of as skills develop. So trying to find the fit that will last is hard. It seems like he does so much experimenting. Like this whole season was experimenting. He never actually found anything and stuck with it. Fred said that actually in his interview. That he was just trying lineups, trying different things all the time. And they couldn't really like get a bread and butter that they really, really practiced and perfected. And that's part of what I'm talking about. In some ways, he's still in that discovery mode that he's usually in the first part of the season that we talked about this year, Mike. We talk about when he's discovering things and doing things. Well, he never really got out of that mode this year. And that's part of the problem with what we did this year is that he was still trying to discover stuff. At some point, you got to learn all this and really just take the good stuff that you figured out already and just go with it. And stop continuing to grasp for new things and new combinations and new stuff. Whatever's working, just go with it, Nick, and stop doing too much of this. There's a certain point where he needed to switch it, but he didn't, and he couldn't. And in some ways, he did with Jakob coming in. There was some of this kind of happening, but for the most part, it's still experimenting, trying Will Barton late in the game, late in the season, trying to get him integrated. This was all experimenting the whole season, and we didn't really go with last year we had a set thing that really worked from December 1st that we really went with for the whole rest of the season. And that's why it was really successful. This year, we never found that bread and butter and went with it for a while. We were just searching the whole time. And in some ways, Fred was frustrated with that. You could tell in his interview, he's saying, we just kept trying to experiment and try different things. He said, I want to just do what we're going to do. He wants the structure. He's calling out for it so bad. Yeah, I can tell he didn't like the chaos. He didn't like the way that the game is just kind of like out there and just let it happen. He wants it to be very defined and controlled so that they can control their destiny. And that makes total sense. Sheer Khan saying, Raptor Freak family, here's my take on DR. She may not be the most popular. She's a kid. That's it. No mental issues. Of course, there's no mental issues. That was a silly comment. No behavioral problems. Exactly right. Just a kid who wants her dad to win. We love DeMar and family. Raptors have bigger issues. Very astute and right on point, as per usual, from Sheer Khan, and a reality check on DR DeRozan and who she is. This is exactly right. Carlos saying, yes, please, more structured offense, please. Screens, plays, motion offense, like where you watch the game and they're like, oh, they're running a play because you can see this person's doing this and this. And it can't just be like a loose, like, all right, this is what we do in this play set. I want a very specific play, like an inbounds play. Like you do this to set this guy up, and then all of a sudden Precious is lobbing it, like getting a lob and throwing it down because he's so open and they found him and they had the right passer. It's stuff like that. Sure, Khan saying players are pros and need to tune out stuff, even if it's right in front of them. We've seen this before, nothing new. The bigger problem is the viewing experience. Many times I've had to mute when Raptors shot free throws. Yeah, well, that screeching probably hurt your ears, Shere Khan. Um, I'm with you. The pros need to be pros. And in the ever evolving world of sports, there's more problems with toxic noise around teams more than ever. And they have to adjust with how it happens and how it is. And I think they all gave signals that they are adjusting and doing smart things with their social media and cutting us off. Scottie's not going to be on Twitch this summer. I know he's not going to be on Twitch. And it's sad because in some ways we'd love to revisit and spend time with him again this summer, but I fully doubt him to have that connection with the fans like that this year. That in some ways the toxicity bleeds through. And I don't know if he can control his Twitch stream like he did last summer from some of the bullshit that people will say because of an off year this year. So I don't encourage him to come back as much as I'd like to spend time with him and hang out with him and interact with him like I did last year. In some ways, I'm glad he probably won't because it's a distraction and he doesn't need any extra stupid shit in his head just because of people in our chat saying dumb shit on Twitch. So it's going to be different. It's going to be different this summer. Carlos saying hybrid system of the free flow for the starters, but structured offense for bench players, structured offense for crunch time. Now, see, they can't mix and match it that way. It's kind of like they're going to have to do all or nothing. And the same thing for the 905 because their system's supposed to mirror the Raptors system and be very much the same. So it's easy to plug in and play Koloko and Doughton and Ron Harper Jr. because they learned everything the same way down on 905. So it's a very much the system change will go all the way down to 905, and they'll have to make the adjustments that the Raptors make this year. If we make a new coach come in this year, Eric Curry is going to have to do a whole different thing than he did last year. That's going to relate to how the coach is doing things, the new coach, if we do get a new coach. So it's going to be very interesting and different as far as I hope that there's way more structure to our offense just in general. There just needs to be. Infamous saying, I know you're good at reading body language. Did the body language match what the player was saying? Okay, this is a good point. And this is something that you need to look at. But once again, we have to give allowances for the specifics of the interviews yesterday. I would say, all right, the thing that bogged me with Scottie was he was very low energy and he was mumbling and he wasn't very forthright and speaking very loudly. And he did seem kind of discouraged. Now, that was how I read him, but everything he said was important that mattered. And the thing is the conditioning. Now, we're not worried about Scott going anywhere. So it's not like some of the issues with Fred and Gary are things we don't worry about with Scott. It would have to be like Masai trading him or something that would move him. So we're not worried about him for those aspects. The thing we worry about with Scott is his drive to get better this summer. And everything he said in that interview told me that he is right on the right page for this. Now, we can talk about Siakam's body language and the way he was acting in the interview. And yes, he did seem a little casual and defeated. But once again, all these guys did not go to sleep the night after the game, and they were all they were still up from the game the night before. So every single person's body language in those interviews, a lot of them, Nick said it, Fred said it, and Pascal said it specifically, that they didn't get any sleep after the game because they went over it over and over again. This is common with athletes and coaches, that if they get in a game and it's an elimination, they lose, they go over it over and over again in their head and they can't sleep anyway. And that's what happened with them. So part of their body language is because they're exhausted and they still ain't fucking slept. So there's a little bit of that involved in reading them from yesterday. SGA saying, Infamous is saying SGA would be my dream player for this team. He'd be awesome. He'd be great. He'd be great on any team. But, in some ways, he's not going to be easy to pry from Oklahoma City. And we may not want to pay the price to get what it takes to get him here. If it works and it makes sense at the time when something may open up and be able to be happening, I'm sure Messiah will look into it. But I think people need to give up on their crush on SGA because in some ways he very much is like their franchise player and they don't want to let him go from Oklahoma City. Their fan nation is really sick of Toronto fans thirsting for him, in fact. And I don't like it. In some ways, we don't want to be like, what did they say? Don't covet thy neighbor's wife. In some ways, we need to have this rule with this kind of thing, that if there's no real reality to it, let's stop thirsting from afar, even if it's for a while. It's no point. You can say, yeah, that's a dream player for this team. I'm with you. And he'd be great for our team. But I really don't like how thirsty everybody is in Raptors Nation for him and how they express it all the time. Trevor's saying Nick has to stop coaching the black and white movies and start coaching in the 20th century of HD movies. I like that, Trevor. That's a pretty cool analogy as far as things. Yeah, I think he just needs to flesh it more out and take more control and leadership. In some ways, you give the guys freedom, and that's good. But that's to discover themselves. But in some ways, you need to give them some structure and tell them what the fuck they should be doing. Sheer Khan saying season is over, but we still have a chance to salvage it in the draft. Tanking wasn't a choice. After bottom four teams, spot 6 through 10, only separated by 5 games, was going to be a crapshoot. We can get the 11th pick with OKC and Chicago win. So there, you have a rooted interest in some of the teams winning tonight because it'll help our draft chances. That's true. I like that. Logical saying, not gonna lie, Lex, you got to drop bench Fred VanVleet. It's not going to happen. We would then need a more important role, starter point guard. If Fred isn't starting, we're not going to win, in my opinion. Scottie definitely not ready for full time. And you agree also, Space Cat. Well, hear me out. Seriously, listen to me here. He gets a safety net. Scottie gets to try, but if it doesn't work, we can change it and put Fred in right away. In some ways, there's a real strength to this. Really, really think about what I'm talking about, Mike. That don't get hung up on the whole idea of starter versus bench. I hate that. Once again, it's really dumb how people look at it in the modern NBA. This wasn't an issue in the 80s. This wasn't an issue in the 90s even. This is really much more recent in NBA highlight ESPN culture where the prestige of starting is so fucking important, everyone. I'm sick of it. It doesn't matter if you start or not. It really, really doesn't. And get over yourselves, people. If you're going to judge people because they're a starter or not, there's very good players that do not start in this league. And if you want to be the best team you can possibly be, you need guys on your bench that could be starters on other teams. And that's why I'm saying this works. It's being proven by the Boston Celtics right now with Malcolm Brogdon. In some ways, Fred is a very similar player to Malcolm Brogdon. And it would make sense to do this. It makes sense because of his body work as the bench mob captain from before. He could just do the same damn shit he did before, except with his newer, better, more learned skills. And he could very much help us in this way. I'm just telling you. You may be surprised. You're probably right. It probably won't happen. If they're daring and they think of this and they do it, I'll be like, and it works, then I'll be like, I told you so. But we'll see. We'll see. It could happen, though. It could. Don't be shocked if something like this could happen. Carlos saying, keep fighting the good fight, fellow freaks. So much negativity right now in Toronto Raptors fandom. Level-headedness is what we need right now. I'm with you, Carlo. Exactly. Like, tune out on social media if you have to. Be like one of the players. If you feel like you're in places and they're triggering you to be angry because they're just so unrealistically negative or messed up, just mute, block, unfollow. Don't see it. You don't have to see it. You can very much be like Fred and Pascal and say, we're just turning it all off. And us as fans can do that. And in some ways, this could be a way we marginalize and minimalize some of the really loud, toxic voices in social media around the Raptors. Just unfollow, stop giving them attention, and they will not be in your world anymore. You won't hear them, and less people will hear them. Because they're going to say this shit and they're going to be there. But if they get less of an audience, they're less powerful. They're really more powerful with the more people actually check them out. And that's the biggest difference. Mike's saying, I think Fred VanVleet's shooting beyond anything at the moment. The starters aren't strong enough shooting the 3-ball. The experience as a point guard is the glue at the moment, but we need other guys to set up Fred for catch and shoots. It's key. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with anything that you're saying here. But, I'm just trying to come up with ideas. I'm brainstorming. And it really struck me that this would make sense. There's a track record where the history with Fred as the captain of the bench mob is really impressive. In fact, that was a huge reason why we built up to the championship. So why wouldn't you do something similar at this point? If Malachi was ready to be like Fred was at that point and do those kind of things, I would say he could do it. But he's not. And Fred is. And in some ways, we don't even need to start Scott at point guard. We could start him at shooting guard still. And maybe we start, I don't know, maybe we have no point guard delineation in the starting lineup. It really is like a positionless starting lineup. And you have like Pascal and Scottie as dual ball handlers because that has worked in the last 2 years. We've seen that work okay, fine, with no Fred on the court, where Pascal and Scottie were like alternating, bringing the ball at the court with maybe a little bit of OG also. So there's ways to do this. There really is. And Freddie is not that essential to the starting lineup as much as you think. Sure, he helps and he's one of our best players, but in some ways he could be a real strength off the bench. I'm telling you, just him being able to sit there and watch the game and how it's going and all of his expertise, he could have a very specific goal when he comes in. This is part of the reason why you have guys that are good and smart off the bench, because they come in and fix things that are gone wrong already in the game because they can see it from the outside. And if they're educated and smart and know how to do it, they could be very effective at changing the game in that instance because they're fixing something that is going wrong for the team already. And that's what I'm saying. There's something about that that's very powerful with it too. Isaac saying Aaron Rose sucks, man. Ramping up the clickbait speculation with nothing to talk about, making shit up. Be positive to one another. I stopped following him like in the last 2 weeks because of what you're saying. He really is trying to stir the pot and make it more dramatic and tabloid than possible. He wants clicks. He just wants clicks. He doesn't give a shit about the health of the team. He doesn't give a shit about whether the team wins. He's not a fan of the team. He's very much just a Sports Illustrated little shithead that's just making up bullshit. He's going to come out with all these fucking dumbass polls this summer asking Raptor fans, who should we trade between these three players? Who should we hire as a coach between these three coaches? There's going to be a lot of that kind of bullshit this summer. So be like me, Isaac, and let's just unfollow him. I don't need him to get all my information from. In some ways, I'll see some of his stuff in Raptors groups on Facebook, and you saw what I wrote to him. I seen you saw some of the comments that I'm writing directly to Aaron Rose, telling him to fuck off. But I won't follow him on Twitter. I can get all my information from Josh Lewenberg, and it doesn't have all that extra bullshit to it. It's very like matter of fact and awesome. In fact, I stopped following Doug Smith. I stopped following Michael Grange. I stopped following Aaron Rose. All three for the same reasons, because they're tabloid motherfuckers, and I don't need all the extra shit with it. I'm very Joe Friday, like it's Friday today. Just the facts, ma'am. Just give me the fucking facts. I don't need your fucking speculating. I don't need your toxic extra bullshit around it. And that's why I like Josh Lewenberg. He's the most factual, accurate, and just no nonsense kind of guy. And he's the best one to follow for Raptors information without all the extra bullshit. Mike's saying, don't worry, Lex. Summer 2023 is the summer of truth for me. I've got the time to really go deep on a bunch of different things. I'm going to go all over the end of season interviews and a lot of different things. Mike, there's so much gold in there. In fact, I watched each interview and I'm like, dude, that's something Mike or Clink needs to cut out and put on their content this summer. There's just certain things that Greg and Mike can actually really carve out of the end of season interviews and be very effective at fighting Project Truth. You guys need that stuff because they're saying it and it's there. It's right out of their mouths. Put that shit on blast more than Aaron Rose's speculation. Carlos saying, I've seen a lot of good things from the starting five when Poeltl came. That starting five is good base moving forward, in my opinion. With more time together, they only get better. Yeah, they're so good. Let's put them on the bench and try and start new starters. Seriously, put Poeltl off the bench with Fred. And I don't know. I'm grasping. I'm trying to figure out new ideas and like brainstorming. And sometimes you throw darts at the wall and they may hit the wall and some of them may hit the bullseye. And that's what I'm saying. I'm spitballing. I'm kind of trying to think about, well, this could be very interesting if we did this. Cowboys here. Good to see Canadian Cowboy Bradley. Good morning, Lex and Raptor Freaks. Just hope everything is well. Let's go, Raptors. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. Everyone enjoy your day. Let's go. TGIF, Bradley, and have fun out there working, whatever site you're at, all the good stuff. Let's see. Isaac Campbell is saying, all right, W to Mike. Mike's saying facts. Nick fumbled the message. He wants a long-term extension. Logic is he wants to stay. The dance of negotiation is big amounts. The world is the stage, and pieces play their role in the dance. The dance seems weird. It may seem like something else, like it's a drug trade. There are many factors involved in the business. There are points of actions, and outsiders may not completely understand. Yeah, I mean, all right, sure. I understand what he did. I mean, this is kind of cut and dry, normal kind of bullshit between a coach and the team. And I just don't like his timing. I really hate the timing. The timing happened at the worst possible place where he absolutely, like, in some ways, it's not fair. These guys work so hard all 82 games to have their coach do this kind of selfish shit as far as with his contract and his place on the team. was so selfish. And that's why I'm so pissed at him. And I still am. It's just that in some ways, I know that this is like, totally out of my control. I would fire him, seriously, just for like doing that, sabotaging our season this year, because he really did. And, in some ways, I don't trust him, but it's not up to me. I got to go by what Masai does. And, the dance may seem weird and all, it may seem like a drug trade or whatever, but what the fuck? You didn't need to do this, Nick. You've operated much better without Clutch being your representation in these kind of situations before. And I just don't remember somebody being so self-sabotaging to his team than when they have a PhD in sports leadership. That's so I mean, what the fuck, Nick? Monique saying Isaac Aaron can be awful. So can Sid 60. I don't listen to Sid, period, or Will Lou. A fan told me he did went off on the basketball television. I hated Sid since day one. Raptors forever. You go, Monique. Monique knows who the real ones are, and we will support and love the people that cover the Raptors that do it in correct way. There's so many of them that are so good that we can put a blast on. In fact, I'm going to do share the love clubs for certain people in our media that I really do feel like are healthy and good people reporting on the Raptors, and not some of these toxic people like Aaron Rose and Sid 60. Mike saying, like, I don't even know what the action of Nick saying what he said was. It's definitely based on a contract extension. Beyond that, it's speculation. Till if it's spoken about at a later date, then it's true. He only wanted to do this. He wanted to make it apparent to the public and everybody that he could walk. And that in some ways, if we want to keep him, we may need to do an extension with him this summer to give him more years beyond this year and give him good money. It's very much a negotiating ploy by Clutch, that he wanted to leave the open idea to people that he could walk and that he may not be our coach next year. And then everybody may scramble and worry and be like, no, we need to keep Nick at all costs and pay him the money to keep him, Masai. Well, it didn't work that way. Everybody's kind of a little bit kind of like not totally enchanted with him anymore. And we're kind of like, you want to walk? You can fucking walk. So in some ways, he called our bluff. And we said, yeah, you know what? We don't value as much as you think we do. And it fucked up. It kind of fucked him up in some ways. In fact, there may be ways that like now we're more glaring his mistakes. And Masai's like, I have more ammunition to want to not keep you because I can see how you've been ineffective as our coach. It really backfired. Like whatever Clutch told them to do, they're idiots. Because in some ways, the way the Raptors conduct themselves with honesty, integrity, and just upfrontness, no bullshit, it's not the way most sports organizations do things. And because they do things that way, they don't allow bullshit like this to happen. And it doesn't work. You can't fuck with our team like you can fuck with the Lakers, Clutch. You can't. You can't fuck with Masai like that. You should have respected him more. And you fucked up your client and his position and what's going on. In fact, in some ways, maybe he'll get less money because of what you did. Honestly, seriously. Now, if he wants to go get a big payday and to go somewhere else, so be it, Nick. We don't care. We'll let you walk. In some ways, we value you less because of what you did, is what we're saying. You didn't increase your value because you made it feel like you could leave. You decreased your value because you found out, you know what? We don't care. You could walk. Go ahead. In some ways, that's what fucking happened. It's just so stupid. Isaac's saying, yep, this is not limited to basketball media coverage or hockey reporters reporting on basketball, but I am going Tom Duke. This nonsense, and call it out more in social circles. Positively Raptors. You go fight the good fight. Project Truth always. Isaac Campbell is a warrior in the comments section. He is somebody who will come in there and stand up for the truth and say the positive things and fight for the positive spin side of things for our Raptors. And I applaud you. You go, Isaac Campbell, and you go fight that fight. We love you, Isaac. You're the best. Holding it down in Ottawa for Raptor Freak Nation. Fiercely saying Jaren Jackson Jr. deserves Defensive Player of the Year over Mobley. Not as worthy as OG, but OG will shine and get recognition in due time. I love that comment all around by Fiercely, and I am in agreement 100%. Wayne is saying point on OG is he's too cool no matter what. Same with Pascal. Too casual. Lack of Mamba mentality. I know OG has no anger issues. Well, OG's weird. Like in some ways, I don't want to say he's autistic, but in some ways, he's very quirky with his emotions. In some ways, he's had a lot of pain in his life. OG's an orphan. Both of his parents are dead, and he really just has his brothers and sisters in his life. And in some ways, he's had trauma in his life. Very sad things happen that in some ways it's shaped him who he is. Now, I see his casualness different than Pascal's. In fact, I see OG as intense. In some ways, Pascal's casual, but OG is not casual. Listen, you cannot do what he does on the basketball court and be casual about it. You cannot take LeBron James by the horn and still try and score at the other end and have all the success that he's had. As he said it, he's tried to expand his game on both ends of the court. And in fact, OG has had gains on both ends of the court this year, defensively and offensively. Offensively, for sure. I think every one of us could say his 3-point shooting was much better this year and that he was a much better offensive weapon more consistently this season than ever. And then on the defensive end, we once again drew the toughest assignment and did it tirelessly and no complaints and just did bad ass shit. Stuff against Jokic, stuff against LeBron, stuff against DeMar. This is what I'm talking about. So in some ways, there's no way that OG's too casual because his output and the way he does things on the court, you can't be casual to get those kind of things to happen. And in some ways, it's the same with Pascal. It's just that he's casual about, and it's not even about the winning. I guess what you're saying is they're casual in the interview, or maybe they seem like they don't care. I think OG has a hard time expressing emotion just in general, and that he probably does really care on the down low and stuff. The other thing we've got to realize also, these guys are athletes. They're super, super athletic, talented people. And in some ways, they're not necessarily the most intelligent people also. I'm not trying to knock them. I love these guys to death, and they are very smart people. But there's different levels in IQ on our team. There's some players that are very, very smart that I've mentioned already that are brilliant. And there's some players that are not exactly, they're athletes. Let's just put it that way. They're jocks. And in some ways, their intellect isn't the same as some of the other guys on the team. And that is part of the reason why we need to go towards certain leaders on our team because they're intellectually just really, really smart people, just in general. And I'm not saying that some of our players are dumb. I'm just saying that there's different levels of intellect on our team. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's keep going. Monique is saying W stream Lex. Let's go Raptors. Always keep at it. Yeah, Lex. I don't watch basketball after the Raptors are done. Yes, I'll be here. All right. Well, then it's on, y'all. Tomorrow, Share the Love Club, Monique Lawrence. That's right. Super fan Monique Lawrence. You are getting the first Share the Love Club of the year. Tomorrow morning, 9:30, we're going to celebrate one of the biggest, pure-hearted, true, positive Raptor Freak fans in the whole Raptor Freak Nation, Raptors fans. The community champion, Monique Lawrence, is getting Share the Love Club tomorrow. That's right. You are getting the first one of the season, Monique, because you will be here and we will be celebrating you tomorrow morning. All right. You got it, Monique. There you go. Cool Cat saying SGA shouldn't play for the Raptors. Not good for his mental health to play at home. There would be no separation. Yeah, it's tough. Like he's had more pressure from friends and family being around. It's tough. Delano's done a really good job with that issue with him being on the team. He doesn't go back to Rexdale and mix it up with some of the old people he used to because he knows there may be pitfalls in that. And I think this is right. We came up with this before when you talked about this. I remember Cool Cat saying this before, and I agree. I think that this is true. When you play for your hometown team, it's not easy. It's not easy. There's a lot more different weird pressures. And in some ways, maybe SGA won't need those pressures here. I love that he wore the Canadian tuxedo, the denim on denim coming into the game the other day. He's a cool dude. He's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of his, but he doesn't have to play for the Raptors for me to be a big fan of his. Go Thunder. Beat the Timberwolves tonight. I'm rooting for y'all tonight. Shere Khan saying W stream for a Freakout Friday. Good things on the horizon. Thanks again, Lex, for the journey, but it's not over yet. Offseason should be a good one. We are all here for it. Big moves coming. Go Raps. You go Shere Khan. You have a great weekend also. TGIF, my good friend, and I always am delighted to see your comments in the stream. Race Mode saying, is Lexathon capable of doing 15-minute streams? I don't know if I am, Edmund, at this point. You know what I'm going to have to do? There may be specific days where I don't interact with you guys, and I just come on and I do a 15-minute spiel, and then I log off. And you guys can comment in the comment section afterwards, but there won't be any live interaction. Because the thing that really does draw me out and everything is the interaction between you guys with the comments. And so it may be that I have certain days where we talk a lot, and they are a couple hours long streams. And there may be days like the Friday Freakout may in the future, because this was the interviews yesterday were such a big deal. I wanted to talk about them. But the Friday Freakout may end up being very much a monologue and just me going off for 10 to 15 minutes, and that is it. So we'll see. I'm going to try and suss this out because that is a goal of mine to cut down my stream times. And if we can figure out different ways to do it, it may be certain days where we do have live stream interaction and some days that we don't, just because we don't need to. And it just means give and a take. And if you want to interact with me, it'll be in the comments section after I posted it. So, all right, let's keep going. Great sharing this season with you guys. Oh, always, Edmund. Last year also with you, man. And I honestly, it's just fun to get to know you guys even better, more and more as time goes on. And I know we'll meet up in real life at some point in the future, Edmund, for sure. Let's go, ping pong balls. 1%. Do you mean that there's a chance that we can get the number one pick and get Victor Wembanyama? Yeah, there is a chance, Seymour Pape. We could get the number one pick because we have a 1% chance. All right, Mike's saying, I get your point. We can't lose the minutes where the bench is out there. I think Masai can cook up something else. I think leaving the starters as is could be the combination. We need more chemistry. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying this fixes the bench problems. It fixes all kinds of problems if we do this thing. Mike's also saying, I think result was gotten. He was on head coaching hiring list, so he's covered either way, similar to OG, Gary, Fred. Clutch's job is to increase interest in case Masai doesn't want to continue with them. Yeah, but they really could have done the timing better. Do it now. This is when they should have did that shit. They should have done that shit now. They should have put the rumors out about him possibly going to the Rockets after we were eliminated. That's the thing that pisses me off. In some ways, maybe Clutch didn't want the Raptors to go very far. Maybe they wanted to hurt them and make it harder for them because that's what they did. And that's what I don't like. Whether it's a Houston Rockets fan base that started it or it was Clutch, whoever it was, fuck you. Because you fucking really ended our season early and you hurt us for doing well in the play-in, for sure. Let's see. Mike saying Clutch creates confusion, but they are increasing the player's value, also trade value-wise. So Masai doesn't mind Clutch increasing the value of his players if he's the guy deciding on retaining. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They're trying to increase Nick's value, but honestly, Nick's value is not very good after this season. There's a lot of Raptors fans that are not impressed with Nick. And in some ways, I would bet that Masai's probably analyzing he's not looking very good. Let Me Cook is giving me the salute of fire. I appreciate that from a fan of another team, Let Me Cook. And you go Philadelphia. When you start your season with your series with Brooklyn, you guys will have a good little run. All right, let's see what happens tonight with the games. As I said, tonight the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls are playing. All of the refs favor the Miami Heat. Tony Brothers is the crew chief for that game tonight with Kyle and DeMar. It'll be Tony Brothers, Josh Tiven, and Carl Lane. All three of them statistically favor the Miami Heat. On the other game, it's Oklahoma City at Minnesota. Scott Foster favors the home team Timberwolves. He is the crew chief, crooked-ass Scott Foster. And then Courtney Kirkland and Gianmitas Petraeus are favoring the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it's a little bit unclear who could win that game because two of the refs are for the Thunder, but Scott Foster is for the Timberwolves. So we'll have to see how that all works out. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining me today for a Friday Freakout, talking about the end of season interviews. Very positive, very good. If you did not watch any of them, I will tell you for sure, watch Fred's, for sure. Watch Nick's. It's very interesting and telling also. And the other ones, you can watch them if you want. They were all very good also. Poeltl very much happy to be back in Toronto and does show all the signs he wants to re-sign with us. Gary Trent Jr., very open to being back with us next season. And he's definitely going to be working with Masai to see if they can come to an agreement on a number. Fred, perfect interview. I'm going to tell you right now, 30 minutes of perfection. An interview from Fred VanVleet. Everything said, everything so honest, everything on point, and everything exactly where Fred should be with what he's saying. Pascal looks tired, but he's saying a lot of the right things too. OG, he loves Toronto and wants to be here. Shut up, Jake Fisher and Bob McCown. And then, of course, Scottie Barnes talking about conditioning. Conditioning is going to be very important. And Chris Boucher wants to play for Team Canada. Can we put him on Team Canada somehow, some way? All right, Ray Smith saying, my money is on DR. Let's go DeRozan. Much love. She won't even be there. She's not even allowed in the building. All right, let's go Raptors.